Batman's Owl Godfather. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story in all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 1 Batman, Before Year Zero. Gotham, late at night, in an alley. Gunshots rang out, pearl necklaces scattered across the ground. Shadows shrouded two cold bodies like a curtain, and a child sat numbly. In the distance, the sound of sirens approached. When I was little, I was afraid of bats, but adults tell me that bats are even more afraid of me. Master Wayne, within the stately Wayne Manor, the elderly butler Alfred walked steadily, the tray of refreshments radiating warm steam. He gently placed this offering of care before Bruce Wayne. At this moment, Bruce, not yet donning the legendary bat cape, was only an 8-year-old boy, a child who had recently lost both parents to the torrents of fate. Bruce's eyes seemed to have been drained of their soul, empty and lifeless. He stared out the window, the city called Gotham reduced to a blurry silhouette. His thoughts seemed to drift to a distant shore, deaf to Alfred's calls. Alfred said nothing, turned away, wanting to leave Bruce a quiet space of his own. However, just as he was about to leave the room, Bruce suddenly called out to him. "Alfred, what's the matter, Master Bruce?" Alfred turned around, his tone calm and concerned. "It's all my fault." Bruce's voice trembled, tears welling up in his eyes. "I made them leave the theater early. If I weren't scared." "No, no, no," Alfred interrupted him hastily, his hand gently stroking Bruce's hair, his movements gentle but firm. "You did nothing wrong, Bruce. The culprit of all this is that criminal. He caused this tragedy, and it has nothing to do with you. Do you understand? But my father was obviously a good man. Don't good people get good rewards in Gotham? Because this city is sick." Alfred turned his gaze to the window, where he saw the outline of Gotham City, a city struggling in the darkness. "It's too sick." Bruce couldn't accept this answer. "Why is it like this?" Alfred tried to maintain a calm expression. He knew the complex web of interests behind Gotham City was too obscure for an 8-year-old to grasp. So, he chose language more accessible to Bruce's questions. "Because of a curse?" Alfred's voice was deep and powerful. Bruce's head jerked up, his face filled with shock and questioning. "Curse?" He repeated the word, as if trying to grasp its meaning. "Yes, a curse from the devil," Alfred continued. "It has cursed Gotham, plunging its people into an endless cycle of fratricide. In this city, crime reigns, and justice often lacks a place. Killing and arson bring gold belts, while repairing bridges and roads leaves no corpses. This is Gotham. The so-called devil is the Gothamites' uncontrollable greed," Alfred thought. As an elder who had watched Bruce grow up, Alfred's greatest wish was for him to escape all this crime and strife. Ideally, he could become a carefree, wealthy young man. If he could completely leave this troubled land of Gotham, even better. However, contrary to expectations, Alfred's words failed to achieve the desired effect. Instead, they sparked a resolve deep within Bruce. 2 years later, in Wayne Manor's vast library, towering bookshelves lined the walls, each shelf filled with dusty scrolls and heavy tomes. 10-year-old Bruce, now buried in an ancient tome, surrounded by scattered, open books. So that's it, Bruce muttered to himself. After 2 years of searching, he was finally convinced that Alfred had not deceived him. The book in his hands chronicled the history of Gotham City and the Wayne family. It recounted a thrilling past. It recounted how Thomas Jefferson, the founding father of the Wayne family, made a shocking decision amid the flames of the Revolutionary War. He summoned a demon named Barbatos. The demon's immense power helped the young nation secure the victory of freedom. However, victory came at a heavy price. To prevent this demon from wreaking havoc on the human world, Jefferson had no choice but to seal it beneath Gotham City, thus ensuring national peace. Bruce's fingers gently slid across the pages, his heartbeat quickening, each breath weighing heavily on history. He finally came to believe that Gotham's darkness wasn't unfounded, but had deep, profound roots. Every corner, every street, held the potential to harbor traces of that sealed past. His parents had perished at the hands of those demons. Young Bruce abruptly rose, his youthful face brimming with determination. He would rectify the mistakes of his predecessors and utterly destroy the demon that had tainted Gotham. 2 years hadn't extinguished the hatred within him. 10-year-old Bruce still possessed the passion and recklessness of a young man. He didn't consider the consequences of failure. To avenge his parents' deaths, he would confront the demon head-on, even if the price was mutual destruction. With a flashlight, young Bruce, following the ancient text, located a vast cavern beneath Gotham City. As he entered, a swarm of bats flew out like a black cloud. Bruce shuddered, afraid to look directly at the creature he feared most. When the bats dispersed, Bruce saw the full extent of the cave. True to the description in the book, a massive stone sculpture of an owl was deeply etched into the stone wall. Bruce drew his knife and, in accordance with the ancient ritual, began to chant the spell to break the seal. As the spell echoed, the air around him seemed to come alive, and a sinister aura quietly filled the air. To destroy the demon, you must first release it. Bruce was ready. In his arms, he held his father's revolver, ready to test the demon's wisdom and courage when it appeared. As the ritual neared its end, Bruce began the final step. He slashed his palm and smeared the blood on the stone statue. Then, a dark mist surged from the statue, intensifying. Bruce gripped his revolver tightly, his heart racing as he prepared for the impending life-or-death duel. A wild laugh echoed from the black fog, and the demon's seal was completely lifted. Bruce completely cast aside his fear at this moment. His face was filled with fearlessness, and justice was about to be unleashed. Then, he heard the first words uttered by the demon after his return to the world. "You, tiny human, have awakened the greatest demon king ever. I will grant you unimaginable wealth. Wait, are you Bruce Wayne?" Chapter 2, Take Gotham? No problem. Bruce watched as the black mist dissipated, revealing the demon's true form. His expression shifted to shock, completely unprepared for the supposed demon to be so ordinary. An owl fluttered its wings and landed on the statue. Its body was well proportioned, its feathers gray-brown, its ear feathers tufted erectly, and its eyes large and round. It gave off none of the demonic aura. The owl stared at Bruce, its head twisted downward 180 degrees, its posture somewhat mocking. "Why aren't you talking? Are you mute, eh?" Hearing the owl speak again, Bruce realized there was something truly special about it. "Who are you?" He recalled the owl's words. "How do you know my name? Why are you so nervous? Put that pistol away." "It means nothing to me." The owl twisted its neck back and gazed up at the sky, reminiscing. "You can call me Katoom. That's my name in the DC universe. As for how I know you, I knew everything about you from the moment you woke me up." Katoom shook his head, his tone playful. "For example, I also know that you are only 10 years old now and will be turning 11 next week. You have just become an orphan and have not yet recovered from the loss of your parents. But don't worry, you will never recover." The topic of parents hurt little Bruce, and he became anxious and angry. "Don't mention my parents. What are you talking about? I am a demon, and opening other people's wounds is my favorite thing." Katoom flapped his wings a few times and preened the feathers under his wings. "But since you awakened me, in exchange, I can help you fulfill a wish." "Any wish will do." Little Bruce chose to refuse without hesitation. "I can't make a deal with the devil. Don't be so resistant." "Why don't you listen to what I can do first?" Katoom suggested, "like resurrecting your parents." As soon as these words came out, Bruce's heart started beating violently. He didn't care about Katoom's harsh words, and his mind was full of what he had just said. Resurrecting his dead parents. Little Bruce almost wanted to nod in agreement immediately. But out of his natural caution, he asked one more question. "How are you going to resurrect?" "A matter of necromancy," Katoom said casually. "I'm going to cast a spell now, and your parents will be able to crawl out of the grave in the next second." Bruce's eyes suddenly widened. Climb out of the grave directly? His parents have been dead for 2 years. Would they still look like human beings if they crawled out? No. No way. Bruce immediately rejected Katoom's proposal. This won't work. Katoom thought about it, and then made a new suggestion. "How about I help you reduce the crime rate in Gotham City to 0? It has to be said that the suggestions made by Katoom are indeed what Bruce desires most in his heart. But Bruce still asked one more question. "How are you going to do it?" "This is simple." Katoom gave the answer. "As long as all the people in Gotham die, there will naturally be no crime." "No, this time." Little Bruce almost screamed and rejected Katoom's proposal. Katoom felt a little regretful. "It's a pity that you missed the opportunity to solve Gotham's problems from the root. This is not to solve Gotham's problems, this is to solve Gotham. Bruce screamed in his heart. The evil and distortion shown by Katoom had completely scared him. This won't work, and that won't work. You are really hard to deal with, the owl said viciously. It's rare to regain my freedom. I want to enjoy this beautiful world. Hurry up and make a wish, and I will make it for you. These words suddenly woke Bruce up. He suddenly realized that the demon he had released could destroy the entire world. His ancestors sealed it for this very reason. But now that he had released the demon, Bruce finally realized how big a disaster he had caused. If he let Katoom go, the consequences would be disastrous. No, he had to make up for the mistakes he had made. Fortunately, it seemed that Katoom had to fulfill one of his wishes because of a certain contract before he could be truly free. Bruce's 10-year-old brain began to work frantically. He had to seize this opportunity and think of an impeccable wish that would not only keep Katoom within a safe range, but also use his power to help Gotham. Finally, he thought of it. I want to change Gotham, in my own way, Bruce said in one breath. Before I achieve my goal, you have to become my assistant and provide me with the help I need. What a clever little guy, the owl sneered. You actually added so many restrictions, reserving your right to deny me at any time. Bruce clenched the revolver in his hand. But this is my wish. Katoom was silent for a moment. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive in this silence, and Bruce could almost hear his own heartbeat. Finally, Katoom nodded. Okay, I agree. I can stay by your side until you achieve your goal, but, the owl suddenly spread its wings, and a gust of wind hit Bruce in the face, forcing him to close his eyes. Not as your assistant, but as your godfather, the devilish godfather. This is my last concession. If you can't agree, it's like you've given up your right to make a wish. I can only say I don't object. Little Bruce shielded his eyes with his hands and compromised. He didn't care about this ethical concession. After all, it was the owl who claimed it, and he didn't have to admit it in his heart. This was a sacrifice made for Gotham. The wind gradually died down. Katoom stood quietly on the stone statue, wings folded, his eyes deep. The contract is signed. From today on, I will help you become strong until you change Gotham. You can go back now. Bruce was still a little shaken. He hadn't expected the situation to be resolved so quickly. What about you? When you get home, you'll find me everywhere. Bruce was reluctant to leave, still filled with suspicion of this demon. Katoom said calmly, if I want to leave, you can't stop me. Since we've been working together for so many years, you should show me enough respect, like trust. These words convinced Bruce, and he finally left. Silence slowly fell within the vast cavern. Suddenly, Katoom the owl's tense posture relaxed. He let out a long sigh. This kid's really hard to fool. Fortunately, he's only 10 years old. Katoom now looked nothing like the controlling, majestic demon king he had been a moment ago. In truth, Katoom wasn't a demon to begin with. He was just an ordinary person who accidentally transformed into an owl and gained the ability to travel between worlds. Aside from a few scare tricks, he had no special abilities. Even his ability to travel could only be used with Batman. Because of his increased strength, he was bound to Batman himself. Only when Batman became stronger could he become stronger. Bruce thought he had tied Katoom to his side, but little did he know that Katoom didn't want to leave in the first place. Looking back on his performance just now, Katoom was quite satisfied. But the real test had just begun. I must not let Batman find out that I'm a fake. Chapter 3, The Power of Denying the World. Honestly, Katoom is panicking right now. Perhaps it's because he was a civil engineer in his previous life, and so the name Katoom has been passed down in this life. It sounds impressive, but he's actually just an owl. Katoom himself can be described in 3 key words: a slacker, a follower of the heart, and a lover of abstraction. Yet, despite this, he's been forcibly tied to Bruce Wayne, a superhero known for his paranoia, suspicion, and isolation. Faced with this situation, Katoom feels as mixed as if Batman's parents had died. The rules of the bond are that every time Batman's power increases, he gets tenfold the reward. If he could be tied to another superhero, that would be great. Their powers would naturally grow, and Katoom could just sit back and reap the rewards. But Batman, he's all about the money, and Katoom won't get a single cent. So, could he negotiate with Batman and improve together? No way. With Batman's suspicious nature and almost pathological need for control, working with him means playing by his rules. That's something Katoom doesn't want to see. His best option now was to scare Bruce while he was still young and seize the initiative. Otherwise, the menu would be served before he even got to the table. Little Bruce, still in shock, returned to Wayne Manor. Alfred quickly came over and asked with concern, "Master Wayne, where have you been?" I haven't been anywhere," Bruce wanted to lie, but Alfred exposed him directly. "You went to that alley again, right? It's dangerous there, not a place for a child." The butler misunderstood Bruce's concealment, and Bruce wanted Alfred to make the best of it. So he changed the subject. "How did you find out?" "Because you can't lie." Alfred squatted down and gently brushed the dust off Bruce. His movements were gentle and delicate, as if he was soothing a wounded heart. Bruce stepped back, his heart beating faster, afraid that Alfred would touch the pistol in his arms. The butler continued, "Master Wayne, lying is a skill. You have absolutely no training in it, so how could you possibly have fooled me?" "Lying requires learning," young Bruce pondered. Then he tentatively asked, "Have all the con men in the city learned to lie?" Alfred nodded, "Of course. Gotham will teach them how to lie." These words filled Bruce with an unprecedented sense of crisis. Just now, before the demon Katoom, he had boasted that he would change Gotham. But now he realized that the criminals in Gotham were learning, while he himself had done nothing. He was falling behind. No way. Bruce now had the idea he should have, to go out and study, to learn how to fight crime. But this required a long-term plan. After repeatedly assuring Alfred that he would never go to his parents' memorial service alone again, Bruce returned to his room. As soon as he opened the door, he was met with a burst of mocking laughter. "You can't even lie?" "Huh?" Katoom, the owl, had arrived at Wayne Manor without him noticing. He stood on a high-backed chair, his laughter sharp and piercing. "Keep it down," Bruce scolded. "Alfred will hear you." Katoom didn't stop his taunting. "No, he can't hear me. You're the one who signed the contract with me. Only you can understand me." Even the sound of an owl is annoying. Bruce slid into his slippers and rolled over to his bed. He remained silent, lost in his thoughts. This habit would undoubtedly continue, especially after becoming Batman. Bruce's mind could no longer tolerate intrusion. But now, an owl had made its way in. "You're anxious, aren't you?" Katoom saw through Bruce's thoughts and pointed them out. "You know what you want to do is difficult, but you're too weak right now. Changing Gotham seems like just an unattainable dream," Bruce retorted. "I'll get stronger, and I have enough wealth to make me stronger, but so what? Even if you get stronger, there will always be stronger enemies." Endlessly, Katoom finished speaking and spread his wings again. This time, something strange happened. The walls of Bruce's room became bizarre and space stretched endlessly, as if the vast universe unfolded within the room. Bruce sat on the bed, but it felt like he was drifting in the galaxy. He saw small worlds flying before him, endless and boundless. Bruce was stunned. "This is the universe." Katoom flew to Bruce's side. "Tell me, in these universes, how much influence can your wealth and power have?" Bruce couldn't answer the question, he was completely dazzled. Seeing his goal achieved, Katoom immediately withdrew his vision, and the room returned to its original state. What he had just demonstrated was his only supernatural power. As long as he was with Bruce, he could open a portal to the universe. "You've probably noticed by now, Gotham is a very special place that constantly attracts criminals," Katoom whispered into Bruce's bewildered ear, his voice like a demonic beckoning. "But I tell you now, Gotham doesn't just attract criminals from your world, but from other worlds as well. It's the intersection of all evil. How much wealth and power do you need to change this city?" Gotham was a criminal's paradise. A Batman could never change it, only torment each other. A mutual destruction, paralyzed. If Bruce continued on his original path, nothing would change. Now Katoom was showing Bruce a completely new path. This was the second time Bruce had heard the concept of world from Katoom. The last time was when Katoom introduced himself, mentioning the DC universe. "Beyond my world, there are other worlds? Those criminals will all come to Gotham?" Bruce's voice trembled. He was just a 10-year-old kid and could not accept this subversion of his worldview. Moreover, a huge sense of powerlessness grew in his heart. If the enemies were endless, then wouldn't the evil never disappear from Gotham? Katoom had successfully scared Bruce, and now it was time to give him a shot of cardiac stimulant. He didn't want Batman's mentality to really collapse. "So what?" Katoom said. "It's not like there is no solution." "What solution?" This time, Bruce almost blurted out and asked Katoom for help. Katoom's answer was also very simple. "Travel with me to the world, and gain the power to deny the world from outside the world. Chapter 4: Barbatos' Pursuit. Bruce found that Katoom's proposal coincided with his previous idea. He had always wanted to travel around the world. Katoom had only expanded the scope. But could he really trust the advice of a demon? Bruce decided to go all out and not think about it anymore. On the one hand, he was indeed frightened by the scene Katoom showed him. On the other hand, as the owl said, as the Demon King, it would be easy for him to kill him, and there was no need to do these tricks. The other party was indeed fulfilling the contract. In fact, this was the benefit of Katoom's early pretense to let Bruce have a preconceived idea. No one would think that the Demon King had time to play with a child. But now there was a problem. Alfred won't agree. Bruce thought of his competent butler, who was now his guardian in a sense. If that's your concern, we can just not go, Katoom said bluntly. I have an infinite lifespan anyway, so wasting a few decades on you won't hurt me. No way. Bruce immediately weighed the pros and cons. Any further hesitation would only hurt him. He pondered for a moment, then made a decision. I can leave secretly without telling Alfred. Bruce clenched his fist, but I'll leave him a letter telling him not to worry. This idea was truly naive. Alfred wouldn't be any less worried just because Bruce left a letter. He'd surely search the world for Bruce. Speaking of sending letters, I remember, Katoom said. I can set up a space-time anchor here so you can write home every day. Is that okay? Bruce's eyes lit up. I can tell Alfred my true story in the letter. Katoom shrugged. Whatever you want, I don't care. With his biggest concern solved, Bruce immediately slid out of bed, slipped on his slippers, and scurried to his desk. He tore a page from his notebook, picked up a pen, and began writing the letter. Katoom landed on his head. 10-year-old Bruce wasn't particularly gifted with writing, but he explained the situation clearly. The gist of the letter was, "Goodbye, Alfred. I'm sailing tonight. Don't worry about me. I have the courage and wisdom of the oars," Katoom reminded him from above. "Write about your Owl Godfather." Bruce rolled his eyes and, starting a new line, wrote about Katoom. He only mentioned meeting a magical owl, not mentioning a godfather. Katoom didn't dwell on such details. When he finished the letter, Katoom shook himself, and a feather fell from it. "Put a drop of blood on it, just like you did when you woke me." Bruce squeezed the newly scabbed scar on his palm and dripped a drop of blood onto the feather. The blood quickly seeped in, blending with the feather and disappearing. "Excellent, the anchor point is now complete. Leave a message for your butler. This will be the medium of communication between you two." Bruce did as he was told. With a final signature, the journey began. Bruce changed into his favorite clothes and, just as he was about to pack a few more things, Katoom stopped him. "No need to bother. Everything you need will come naturally." Katoom dropped onto Bruce's shoulder. "Are you ready? Let's go." Bruce then remembered he hadn't yet explained what to do with his Wayne Enterprise shares. Wait, too late. An illusory cave opened beneath Bruce's feet, and he plummeted. "Whatever else happens, trust your butler," Katoom said, and he dove into the cave. As the cave closed, man and bird vanished from this world completely. Their return would be a long, long time away. In the tunnel of time and space, light and shadow intertwined, ever-changing, like a flowing abstract painting. Bruce hovered in the air, as if lifted by an invisible force. Katoom spread his wings and soared overhead. Suddenly, a series of eerie noises erupted from behind, like echoes in the wilderness, drawing ever closer and closer, leaving Bruce feeling eerie. Bruce was about to turn back when Katoom warned him, "I suggest you don't." "What's that noise?" Bruce didn't turn back, but he couldn't suppress his curiosity. "The one you were trying to kill? Barbatos, the Lord of the Dark Universe," Katoom said calmly. "You're the most important part of his plan. Now that I've taken you away." Of course he's eager to catch up. "What do you mean?" Katoom's brief words contained so much information that Bruce's tiny mind struggled to comprehend. "Nothing, don't overthink it. The time tunnel is my home turf. He can't catch up to me. Hold on tight." Suddenly, Katoom's wings spread, its sharp claws grasping Bruce's shoulder, and he was yanked off course, crashing into another world. A deafening roar of anger echoed from behind. Just as he was about to enter a new world, Bruce caught a glimpse of the creature behind him in its entirety. For a moment, his heart skipped a beat. Barbatos, the ruler of the Dark Universe, appeared before Bruce in an almost otherworldly form. His figure was shrouded in a vast black cloak, beneath which lay a distorted and terrifying humanoid form. From the edges of the cloak extended vast wings, unfurling into the void, blotting out all light and threatening to cast the entire universe under its shadow. Barbatos's cloaked eyes betrayed boundless rage and evil intent. He extended his withered claws, attempting to pull Bruce back to his own universe. However, it was in vain. While traveling through the tunnels of the universe, Katoom was invincible, his journey unimpeded by any outside force. Barbatos could only watch helplessly as Bruce departed, entering a universe not belonging to the DC universe. Roar! Barbatos was furious, and in a trance, Bruce seemed to see the silhouette of a city emerging from the darkness of Barbatos' cloak. It was Gotham. The darkness continued to converge on Gotham, and only then did Bruce understand why Katoom had told him before that Gotham was the intersection of all evil. He suddenly had a strange thought. Perhaps his parents' death was not a simple accident. However, he had no time to think. The huge sense of weightlessness and detachment interrupted Bruce's thoughts. His body and consciousness were caught up in a violent transformation, and Bruce felt like he was spinning in a storm. He continued to fall, finally entering a completely new world. 1991, London, England. Chapter 5. Bruce enters the orphanage. First, I need to explain to you the rules of traveling through the heavens. Whenever we arrive in a new world, the laws of that world will arrange a birth for you based on your circumstances. This is to facilitate your movement within this world without arousing too much suspicion. Don't worry about it, just accept it. Katoom paused at Bruce's shoulder, explaining everything that was happening. But Bruce still found it difficult to accept. You mean, this arrangement best suits my status? Yes, was it? Bruce stood in front of the building's iron gate, double-checking that he was seeing correctly. This was an orphanage. I'm not an orphan, Bruce protested, unable to bear it any longer. I have Alfred, don't tell me that. This isn't my status. If you feel your fragile dignity has been violated, you should protest to this world, Katoom said indifferently. He looked at the name Wu's orphanage and knew what world he was in. The world of Harry Potter. Wu's orphanage was also quite famous in the Harry Potter world because of its outstanding inmate, Tom Riddle. Katoom glanced at a newspaper on the side of the road. The current time was 1991, the timeline where the original story began. This meant that the world was still relatively peaceful. Even if there was chaos, it would take a few more years. Young Bruce, growing up in such a world, would not face any immediate danger. Katoom was still terrified by what had happened in the tunnel of the universe. He had immediately come to this conclusion upon arriving in this world. Barbatos won't give up, Katoom warned Bruce in a nonchalant tone, maintaining his appearance. As the master of the Dark Universe, he's bound to the DC Universe, but that doesn't mean he'll abandon you. If my guess is correct, he'll probably choose to send a DC character into your world and capture you. Young Bruce was puzzled. Why me? I don't even know him. Like I said, you're the most important part of his plan. Just know that. Don't ask anything else. Katoom didn't speak because the truth behind this was too much for a 10-year-old to handle. It would upend Bruce's worldview and severely undermine his belief in future strength. In the original comics, Batman's life trajectory was almost entirely orchestrated by the Bat God Barbatos, including the death of Bruce's parents. Barbatos's goal was to make Batman's body a portal to the dark multiverse and into Primal Earth. Katoom's abduction of Bruce was like running out of Barbatos's house and carrying the door with him. How could he give up? Pursuers would inevitably come after Bruce, whether they were criminals from Gotham, superpowered villains, or even Batman himself from a parallel universe. The stronger the world Bruce inhabited, the stronger the pursuers. The Harry Potter universe was considered a low-magic universe, relatively safe. Bruce was someone who could keep secrets. Katoom didn't want to talk more, and he didn't have the strength to press him, so he simply refrained from questioning, hoping to find out the truth himself. The most important thing now was to fit in with this new world. With a creak, Bruce pushed open the orphanage's iron gate and walked straight in. Passing through the gate, he found himself in a bare courtyard. Beyond it stood a square, old building, surrounded by high railings. The Wu orphanage would be demolished next year, and an office building would be built on its site. As a result, few people lived there, and the orphanage exuded a gloomy, old-fashioned atmosphere. Bruce muttered, "Good, I'm starting to hate this world." Katoom followed him, flew into the orphanage, and, glancing around, concluded, "It feels a bit like Wayne Manor." Bruce didn't dispute this. To him, Wayne Manor, without its parents, was indeed like this orphanage, a vast tomb. Bruce climbed the steps leading to the front door. Before he could knock, A middle-aged woman in an apron came up to greet him aggressively. "Bruce," she yelled in frustration, "where have you been? I told you someone would come find you today. You always have to run around on your own, looking for me." Bruce felt baffled. He had just arrived in this world, how could someone look for him? But before he could object, Mammy pulled him into the front door. Bruce turned around and wanted to ask Katoom for help. But he found that the other party had already flown to the mailbox and didn't care about what happened to him. Bruce was finally pulled away. Katoom really didn't care what happened. This was the world's own arrangement, which was helping Bruce to perfect his identity. There was no need to intervene. This arrangement was completely random, and sometimes it would bring some unexpected surprises. Even if it was discovered that Bruce was Voldemort's illegitimate son, Katoom would not be surprised. As Bruce was pulled into the building, the surroundings became silent. At this time, an owl, slightly smaller than Katoom, landed on the mailbox and stood with Katoom. It was holding a letter in its claws. Katoom took a look at it. It said Wu's Orphanage, to Bruce Wayne. On the back of the envelope was a wax seal and a shield emblem, with a capital H surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake. The little owl tilted its head, not understanding why there was already an owl standing here. Wasn't the task of delivering the letter assigned only to it? Katoom turned around and looked at the little owl. Both sides were silent, and the eyes of the two owls only had each other's figures. Suddenly, Katoom flapped his wings, and with lightning speed, he slapped the little owl out of the mailbox. "Where is your mother?" Katoom cursed. "What kind of class is it, standing on the same mailbox with me? Mr. Bruce Wayne, right?" In the director's office of the orphanage, two men in suits and ties, holding a stack of documents in their hands, kept comparing them with Bruce in front of them. Bruce frowned. He didn't like the feeling of being scrutinized, which made him extremely insecure. This situation did not last long. One of the men quickly put down the documents with a confident expression. "It can't be wrong," he said this, and then smiled warmly. The attitude towards Bruce changed 180 degrees. "We finally found you, Master Wayne." "Huh?" Bruce frowned even deeper. "What's going on? How did he become a master again?" Chapter 6 has a reversal. Bruce still has family. "I'm sorry, we were so excited that we didn't tell you the whole story in time," the men in suits began to explain. They then told Bruce the story of an American playboy. Fike Wayne, the young patriarch of the Wayne family, was a prodigal son who lived a life of debauchery and philandering. He died young, leaving behind a large inheritance. The two men in suits were private investigators commissioned by Wayne to search for a possible illegitimate child. After a lengthy search, they finally led him to Bruce Wayne. All the evidence, every detail matched. "Master Bruce, you are now the sole heir to the Wayne family," the men in suits said in an exaggerated tone. "Your father left you a precious legacy. All his assets combined are worth a whopping $3 billion. Bruce remained expressionless. He felt an indescribable strangeness. It seemed as if the sole purpose of this so-called father's appearance was to leave Bruce with a large fortune. Fike Wayne, doesn't the word fake mean fake? No wonder Al just said that the laws of the world would grant him the most suitable identity. Now it seems that everything has been cleverly orchestrated by some force. Seeing Bruce's calm expression, the men in suits thought he was stunned. Or perhaps he was just too ignorant to understand the magnitude of $3 billion. So he emphasized again, "Master Bruce, this is $3 billion. Even after deducting inheritance taxes, it will allow you to enjoy a lifetime of luxury and comfort." "I heard you." Bruce was a little impatient. "Isn't it just $3 billion? Why say it twice? Let's put $3 billion aside. I just have one question." "Go ahead." Given the enormous inheritance, the two private detectives' smiles bordered on flattery. Bruce spoke word by word. "What is this precious inheritance you just mentioned?" It took the two private detectives a lot of effort to make Bruce understand that the so-called precious inheritance was the $3 billion. Then they saw an expression of unspeakable disappointment on Bruce's young face. It turns out that there is only money. Bruce's lost tone made the two private detectives begin to doubt their lives. "This is $3 billion US. Is it not in your eyes? What on earth are you expecting?" Anyway, Bruce finally accepted his current identity. Although $3 billion is not a lot, it is enough for pocket money in this world. Fike Wayne has formed a professional and loyal team to help Bruce solve the inheritance issue in all aspects, so he doesn't have to worry about it at all. Then, The private detective brought in unexpected news. Master Bruce, during the investigation, we also discovered more secrets about your life experience. When we investigated your mother, we found that she has a sister. This means that you are not alone and you still have relatives connected by blood in this world. These light words instantly exploded like thunder in Bruce's ears. He was truly shocked. The development of the matter had completely exceeded his expectations. The private detective continued to tell the good news. She, your aunt, has never known of your existence. Now that she has learned of your situation, she is rushing here anxiously. I believe you will be able to meet soon. Bruce was stunned and didn't know what to say. Even though he knew that this aunt was arranged by the laws of the world, as long as he was still in this world, she was his family. An inexplicable feeling quietly sprouted in Bruce's heart, both warm and a little uneasy. He had family now. Bruce began to feel a little fear, afraid to meet this relative he had never met. Bruce's voice was trembling. May I ask what kind of person this aunt is? The private detective patiently replied. She is a very kind and gentle woman. She is married to a dentist named Granger and has a daughter. Master Bruce, this means that in addition to your aunt, you will also have a cousin. A Ford car was driving on a small road in the suburbs of London, heading towards the city. Inside the car, the atmosphere in the Granger family seemed unusually heavy. Mr. Granger gripped the steering wheel tightly, while Mrs. Granger sat in the passenger seat. In the back seat sat their daughter, Hermione Granger, an 11-year-old girl with thick brown hair and a pair of large front teeth. Mrs. Granger clenched her hands together, her knuckles slightly white from the force. Tears welled up in her eyes, and finally slid down her cheeks. I always thought Martha was living a good life in the United States. Who knew? Mrs. Granger choked, with unspeakable grief in her heart. And that child, how did he survive all these years? Her husband, Mr. Granger, didn't know how to comfort his wife for a moment. He could only keep saying, "It's okay, we'll be able to take him home soon. He won't be alone anymore," but he's been in an orphanage for 10 years. Mrs. Granger's voice was filled with endless sorrow. He must have been so helpless. No one cooked for him when he was hungry, no one tucked him in when he was cold, and he didn't even get a present for Christmas. At this point, Mrs. Granger could no longer contain her grief and burst into tears. "Mom, don't cry," Hermione tried to comfort her shattered mother, pulling out a clown stuffed animal from behind her. "Look, I brought a present for my brother. He's sure he'll like it." Mrs. Granger didn't respond, lost in her own sorrow. The car drove on, soon reaching its destination. Bruce sat in his room, but something seemed to be wrong. "Katoom, this is really a bit strange, isn't it?" He couldn't understand. Even if they arranged an identity, how could they actually arrange for a relative to come out? Katoom's mentality was very stable. "There's nothing wrong, I can only say that you won the prize this time. Arranging an identity is necessary. Without this step, you will be blocked from the world like Barbatos. The world recognizes you, so you can have this new identity. Don't worry, at least in this world, these relatives are real. Even if you do a paternity test, there will be no problem." Bruce shook his head. "I'm not worried about that." "Then what are you worried about?" "I'm worried." Bruce's eyes revealed a hint of hesitation. "I will develop weaknesses that shouldn't exist because of these family members." Chapter 7. The first pursuer arrives. Katoom didn't answer. Bruce's heart was still raw from the pain of losing his loved ones. On the contrary, for a long time, it was a source of strength. While Bruce was worried and anxious, the Granger family arrived at the door of the Wu orphanage. Mrs. Granger rushed inside, her tears streaming down her face as she saw the shabby facilities. "Bruce," her voice trembled as she saw the boy sitting in the room. Bruce didn't know how to face it, feeling a little embarrassed. This touching reunion was all a fabrication. But Mrs. Granger didn't care. She rushed into the room and hugged Bruce tightly. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you." Mrs. Granger choked back tears. "I'm so sorry about your mother." Bruce's heart was touched at that moment. He thought of his real parents. No one, except Alfred and himself, had truly felt sorry for their deaths. And at the funeral, everyone had told Bruce that his father had been a good man, who had made great contributions to Gotham. But little was mentioned about his mother, just as few people cared about Mrs. Wayne's death. Mrs. Granger's words reminded Bruce of his mother. "Thank you." Bruce's words had barely escaped his lips when tears began to flow. "Don't say thank you," Mrs. Granger interrupted. "We're family, don't say thank you." She hugged Bruce tightly, wanting to offer the lonely child more warmth. Elsewhere, Beyond this touching reunion, Katoom shook his head. He flapped his wings and flew out the window. Bruce had to deal with this matter alone. There was no need for him to constantly watch. As he flew into the courtyard, Katoom saw Mr. Granger standing outside, handing over matters to the orphanage's nurse. Beside him stood a little girl with disheveled hair. Hermione Granger, the future Minister of Magic, clutching a clown stuffed animal, waited for her mother to bring her cousin out of the room and give him a warm welcome. Everything was progressing steadily, and Bruce was no longer an isolated figure in the Harry Potter world. Katoom saw the date in the newspaper. Today was February 19, 1991. February 19th was Bruce Batman's birthday. He was 11 years old. No wonder an owl delivered a letter to him. Katoom looked up at the still clear sky. The Hogwarts letter had arrived, but he wondered when Barbatos' pursuers would arrive. And who would be the first to arrive in this world? Brixton, located in South London, is part of the Lambeth Borough. It's famous for its rock and roll scene. It's a culturally rich neighborhood, primarily inhabited by African Caribbean people. Unfortunately, it's also a chaotic neighborhood. Drugs and crime are rampant here, making it arguably the most dangerous place in London. Furthermore, it's also home to a large number of dark wizards, unacceptable to the wizarding world. At that moment, in a dark alley, a passage suddenly opened in the void. A figure tumbled out, knocking over the piles of cardboard boxes in the alley. This sudden change frightened the homeless man huddled in the corner. He tentatively approached the prone figure, eager to see if he was dead or alive. He wasn't trying to call the police, but simply to check if the figure had any money in his pockets. However, just as the homeless man reached out for the figure, everything went black. The figure suddenly rose from the ground, flashing behind him at breakneck speed, twisting his arm and holding him in a tight grip. "Have mercy," the homeless man reacted quickly. Dropping to his knees with a thud, begging the figure to forgive his recklessness. With such skill, he was no ordinary figure. He was likely a core member of a gang. However, the figure ignored the homeless man's pleas and instead asked a strange question. "Where are we? What time is it?" Though the homeless man found it strange, he could only answer truthfully, "This is London, around 3 p.m. I'm asking about the year and date," the figure shouted, applying pressure. The homeless man was instantly startled, trembling like a sieve. 1991. It's February 19th, 1991, February 19th, the man pondered, then suddenly pushed the homeless man away. "Get out of here. Don't let me see you again." The homeless man immediately crawled out of the alley. As he turned the corner, he couldn't help but look back at the figure. He saw the strangest outfit he had ever seen. The man was tall and sturdy, wearing a brown leather jacket, twin pistols on his hips, and a red metal hood covering his head. His face was completely obscured. The outfit reminded the homeless man of a character from a horror movie. He didn't dare to breathe and fled immediately. Even in the dangerous area of Brixton, such a person was definitely a top-tier threat. Meanwhile, the man in the red hood was checking his electronic devices. As expected, they were completely disconnected from the internet. But it didn't matter, he didn't rely on them anyway. Mr. Wayne, today is February 19th, your birthday. The man removed his cowl, revealing a youthful, handsome, yet scarred, gloomy face. "In that case, I will give you the best birthday present, your death." In this strange world, the only person who knew this man's identity was perhaps Katoom, or rather, an owl. Jason Todd, also known as Red Hood, was a renowned DC anti-hero. He hailed from the DC universe of Arkham Knight. He also had another, now forsaken identity, Batman's second Robin. He was adopted by Batman as a teenager and raised almost like his own son. However, due to the Joker's schemes, a profound misunderstanding and rift arose between the two. Now, Jason no longer viewed Bruce as a foster father, but as a foe he desired to eliminate. "Everything you taught me, I will use on you again." Red Hood Jason's eyes were filled with deep hatred. He'd never forget the moment Bruce abandoned him, leaving him to die. Now, he finally had a chance for revenge, and it was against a Batman of the main universe. "Bruce, let me see if your cold-bloodedness is innate. When you were a child, faced with a threat of death, would you have begged for mercy?" If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Hogwarts invitation. The Granger family's Ford was driving down a suburban road. Mr. Granger was a dentist, a respectable profession, and to provide his family with a comfortable living environment, he had purchased a single-family house in the suburbs. Bruce and Hermione sat in the backseat, Bruce clutching a clown doll his cousin had given him. "From now on, I'll protect you." 11-year-old Hermione warmed to her new brother and immediately took on the role of older sister. She eagerly shared her secrets. "Do you know wizards? The kind that can do magic?" Hermione's birthday was September 19th. Hogwarts acceptance letters arrived on each young wizard's 11th birthday, but school started on September 1st. This meant that Hermione had actually received her acceptance letter last year, but had to wait nearly a year before she could enroll. That year's wait was agonizing. Even after memorizing all the textbooks, Hermione still had several months to go. Magic. Bruce raised his eyebrows, thinking of the owl demon that had followed him, and Barbatos, whom he had met in the time tunnel. It seemed that no matter which world he went to, magic was an important component. Yes, magic. Hermione raised her head slightly, her tone a little smug. She didn't mean any harm, she spoke that way. "My family, our family, is just ordinary people, but I have a talent for magic and was accepted into a magic school." Mom and Dad were horrified. "That school is called Hogwarts, and as far as I know, it's the best. I've memorized all the textbooks now, and I've even tried a few simple spells, and they all worked. This proves I'm a natural-born witch. From now on, anyone who dares to bully you while I'm around will be blasted away with magic." Before Bruce could respond, Mrs. Granger, sitting in the passenger seat, spoke first. "Hermione," she said, rather angrily, "don't brag about things like that in front of your brother. How do you know he won't get into Hogwarts?" Sometimes children speak without restraint, but Mrs. Granger is very sensitive to this. Bruce has spent the past 10 years in misery, and his character must be very inferior. Now Hermione is showing off in front of him, which may hurt him inadvertently. Thinking of this, she asked, "By the way, Bruce, when is your birthday?" Hermione's admission notice was delivered on her birthday. Bruce answered truthfully, "February 19th, swish." Mr. Granger suddenly stepped on the brakes, and all the passengers in the car couldn't help but lean forward. "Isn't that today?" Mr. Granger exclaimed. "Bruce, why didn't you tell us earlier? We didn't buy you a cake or a gift," Bruce asked in confusion. "It should be on the adoption certificate, right?" Upon hearing this, Mr. Granger immediately took out the certificate obtained from the Wu orphanage from his pocket, and the birthday column clearly stated February 19th, 1980. "Ouch!" Mr. Granger slapped his forehead. He really didn't notice it just now. Mrs. Granger was immediately furious. It would be difficult to make up for this carelessness later. Fortunately, he asked one more question just now. But Hermione realized another point. She said happily, "If today is Bruce's birthday, he will receive the admission notice immediately." Mrs. Granger was a little embarrassed. She had just said it casually to comfort Bruce that he would receive the notice. Bruce might not receive it. "Bruce, Hermione," she opened her mouth to give the two children a vaccination. But there was a sudden knocking sound outside the window. "Coo," the cry of an owl came. The people in the car looked outside and saw a little owl with a bandage on its body, with a sad face, pecking at the car window with its beak. At the feet of the owl, there was a parchment envelope tied. It was engraved with the Hogwarts school emblem, and a sentence was written at the signature. In the back seat of Mr. Granger's car, to Mr. Bruce Wayne. Hermione blinked, then let out a deafening scream. "Here I come." Mrs. Granger accepted the letter, and the little owl immediately flew away as if escaping. Before leaving, it was still looking around, as if to confirm whether someone was there. "This owl is an impatient one," Mrs. Granger concluded, and then handed the letter to Bruce. She smiled warmly. "Open it, Bruce. This memorable moment should be opened by you." Bruce took the letter and opened it, and there was indeed an admission notice from Hogwarts. Hermione recited the contents of the letter without even reading it. She didn't know how many times she had read her own letter. She just needed to change Bruce's name. Mrs. Granger looked at the two children, smiled and said, "My daughter is talented, and my sister's son is also talented. It seems that the magical talent comes from my family." These words left Mr. Granger speechless. Hermione was still reciting the contents of the letter. "We will wait for your owl to bring your reply before July 31st. God, Mom," she suddenly realized something very serious. "The owl just flew away, and we haven't sent it back with a reply yet." "Oh no, Mrs. Granger also realized the problem. Muggle families don't have owls, and usually they let the owl that delivers the reply take it away directly. Hermione had done that before. But now the owl had simply slipped away. There was nothing else to do. Mrs. Granger smiled bitterly at Bruce and said, "It seems that I can only buy you an owl when I buy you school supplies. I want one too," Hermione said from the side. "You can't." Mrs. Granger immediately rejected her daughter's proposal. "You can hardly take care of yourself now. I'll buy you one in the 3rd grade. Hermione was immediately very dissatisfied, and she almost said in a spoiled tone, "Why? I don't accept it." Bruce watched the mother and daughter quarreling quietly from the side. Then he raised his hand weakly and said, "If it's an owl, you shouldn't need to buy another one specifically, huh?" Hermione and Mrs. Granger turned to look at Bruce at the same time. "Because I already have one." Bruce looked out the window and called out, "Katoom, come out, I know you're there." No one answered. Bruce called out again, but there was still no response. The atmosphere suddenly froze. For the first time, the young Bruce felt what embarrassment was. This feeling was second only to the middle-aged Batman and Blue Beetle watching his early Black history together. "I really have an owl," Bruce wanted to explain to himself, but Mrs. Granger said, "It doesn't matter. An owl is not worth much. You don't have to feel embarrassed. This is a gift from your aunt." Their family still didn't know that Bruce had inherited the estate. However, this comfort made Bruce even more embarrassed. Finally, at this moment, words came from outside the window that only Bruce could understand. "Impolite boy, when you call me in the future, you have to call me Mr. Katoom and say please." Hearing Katoom's voice, Bruce felt relieved. As for those rules, they were not too excessive anyway, and he could accept them. "Mr. Katoom, please come out." "That's better." Katoom flapped its wings, appeared out of thin air, and landed on Bruce's shoulder. This scene almost scared the Granger family. Katoom ignored all this and said to himself, "You are asking me to help you go to Hogwarts, right?" Chapter 9, The Crown in the House of Requests. Hogwarts Castle is located in the Scottish Highlands, near the wizarding village of Hogsmeade. Katoom wouldn't have to worry about getting lost while delivering letters. And now that Bruce had settled into the Harry Potter world, Katoom could begin his next steps. He wasn't just taking Bruce on a tour, but rather helping him become stronger, thereby strengthening himself. While the Harry Potter world was a low-magic realm, it also contained a wealth of magical technology, making it highly valuable for study. While Katoom was working on his reply to Hogwarts, he wanted to explore the world and see what valuable items he could collect. Katoom's first thought was Grindelwald, the first Dark Lord. He had revolutionary ideas, and if he could become Bruce's teacher, he might be able to teach a completely different Batman. But after a moment's reflection, Katoom realized that this idea wasn't feasible at the moment. He only knew that Grindelwald was imprisoned in Nuremberg, a prison in Austria. But he had no idea where exactly, and he had no way of communicating with Grindelwald. He could only go to Hogwarts to take a look. By the time Katoom arrived in the Scottish Highlands, it was already dark. Flying beneath the clouds, Katoom squinted his eyes as he searched for his target in the darkness. Soon, the silhouettes of Hogwarts Castle's turrets and towers appeared atop the high cliffs across the lake. Scattered owls appeared around Katoom, returning from all corners of the world to guide Katoom. Following the other owls, Katoom arrived at Hogwarts West Tower. The owl shed was located at the top of this tower. A narrow spiral staircase led from the 8th floor of the tower to the battlements at the top. Katoom flapped his wings and flew into the shed. There was a wizard in charge of mail delivery, who naturally took the letter Katoom had brought. After collecting the letter, the wizard left the shed, leaving Katoom standing on the shed, glancing around until he saw a familiar face. A bandaged little owl huddled in a corner, its head buried in its chest, desperately trying to minimize its presence. Yet, Katoom spotted it. Katoom cheerfully flew over to the little owl and flapped its wings against its head. "Coo, what a fate. We meet again. Coo, haha." Seeing no escape from Katoom, the little owl simply raised its head. "This is my home turf. What can you do to me?" But when he saw the other owls instinctively avoiding Katoom, he lost his temper. There was something sinister about this guy. Katoom communicated with the owl without a hitch. He said kindly, "Little owl, what's your name?" The little owl hung its head and replied, "Bubbles." "Okay, Bubbles, you're an owl raised at Hogwarts, right?" Katoom nodded. "From today on, you're my little brother. Now, I have a request, take me around the castle." Bubbles was furious but couldn't say anything. Could he refuse? He could only obey and flew Katoom into Hogwarts Castle. The lights in the student dormitories were off, and the entire castle was shrouded in darkness. The two owls flew silently, just above the ceiling, unnoticed. Katoom had seen scenes of Hogwarts Castle countless times in movies, but this was his first time actually inside. The castle was enormous, and it would take him a while to explore it all. But Katoom had a clear destination in mind. Speaking of Hogwarts' most mysterious place, the Room of Requirement is undoubtedly the most important. Over the centuries, countless wizards and witches have entered it and left behind items. While most of them were trash, there were also some genuine treasures. Katoom and Bruce were just starting out and urgently needed items to enhance their strength. He believed the Room of Requirement would grant his small wish. According to Katoom's memory, the Room of Requirement was located on the 8th floor of Hogwarts Castle, across from a tapestry. When the user focused on the desired location and walked through that wall 3 times, a remarkably smooth door would appear. Opening it, they entered the Room of Requirement. Katoom let Bubbles lead the way to the remembered location. He flew over the wall 3 times, silently repeating his request. Yingzi, Yingzi, I and a child, a soon-to-be Hogwarts student, are in trouble and need something to protect us. If you are still here, please grant my wish. After completing his tasks, Katoom returned to the wall. A miraculous event unfolded. A door appeared out of thin air. Cuckoo, Bubbles' eyes widened. It was not surprised by the appearance of the Room of Requirement. But it was shocked that this foreign owl seemed to know the secrets of Hogwarts better than itself. Don't stand there like an idiot. Push the door open with me. Katoom gave the order without hesitation, and then together with Bubbles, they pushed open the door of the Room of Requirement with their heads. After the door opened, the room inside was full of debris. Katoom couldn't help but sigh. Finding the Room of Requirement was only the first step. The real test was still to come. It would undoubtedly be a big project to find something valuable from the garbage that had accumulated over the centuries. I wonder if the Room of Requirement can understand my intentions? Katoom had said when he made his wish that he wanted to find something that could protect him. It wasn't an unreasonable request, and the Room of Requirement should understand, right? Bubbles was already flying around in the Room of Requirement. This was its first time in this place, and it was full of novelty. Katoom purposefully searched through the pile of debris that looked like a small mountain, hoping to find something unusual. For example, a cloak that looked like it was made of precious materials. However, reality soon disappointed him. All he could see was garbage. Broken wands, worn textbooks, and ordinary crowns. Wait, a crown? Katoom flew back and fished the crown out of the waste. After a careful inspection, it was indeed very similar to the description in the original book. The Ravenclaw diadem, one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. He actually found it just like that. How shameful. Katoom felt a little disappointed and wanted to throw the crown back into the trash. He hadn't come into this world to be a savior. Someone would naturally take care of Voldemort's aftermath. There was no need for him to worry. However, just as Katoom was about to throw the crown away, a wave of emotion that touched the depths of his soul emanated from it. Katoom suddenly had an illusion. Was this crown speaking to him? Chapter 10. Is magic such an inconvenient thing? The tiara was exquisite, yet tarnished with age. Katoom clutched it in his claws, almost as if he could hear a soft, musical female voice whispering in his ear. She beckoned him to wear the tiara. Wearing it would grant him boundless wisdom and power. A decline. The tiara's allure had no effect on Katoom. He wasn't stupid, he knew it was imbued with dark magic, yet he eagerly put it on. Wasn't Dumbledore powerful? Even after wearing the gaunt ring, the dark magic still eroded him, leaving him with only a year's lifespan. And Katoom was just a harmless owl, he might kick his ass if he put it on. As for that female voice, it was naive to think it was some remnant of Ravenclaw's. It was Voldemort's Horcrux. If it had any consciousness, it would only be a fragment of Voldemort's soul. To bewitch himself, Voldemort had gone to great lengths, even using a voice changer. I'll give Bruce this to strengthen his willpower. I wonder if it'll work. Katoom tossed the crown back and forth between his claws, pondering how to persecute little Bruce. At that moment, a warm energy flowed into Katoom's body, a magical energy that made him feel a surge of energy. Katoom immediately realized that this was Batman's power increase, giving him a tenfold boost. He was suddenly amused. He was still here trying to figure out how to improve Bruce's strength, And yet he had quietly taken the first step. Back to a moment earlier. At the Granger family's suburban villa, Mrs. Granger was tidying Bruce's room. Hermione brought her wand and textbooks and placed them in front of Bruce. She had once told Bruce that she had mastered several spells. Now that she was home, she had to demonstrate them. "This is my wand." Hermione waved the short stick in her hand. "Grapevine, 10 3/4 inches, dragon nerve. The old man who sells wands says wands choose their owners, so this one's perfect for me." Then, it was time to witness the miracle. Hermione raised her wand and muttered, "Loomis." As soon as she finished speaking, a gentle glow emanated from the tip of the wand, and Bruce couldn't help but close his eyes. Hermione paused her magic, her chin tilted up, a hint of pride. "Well, did I scare you?" Bruce rubbed his eyes and asked in confusion. "Can't a flashlight do this? This is different," Hermione retorted immediately. "It's magic." "Okay, magic." Bruce asked curiously, "What kind of magic is more powerful? I mean, if you encounter a bad guy, what kind of magic can you use against him?" "Well," Hermione evaded the question. Bruce's question was beyond the scope of the first-grade textbook. She decided to change the subject. "It's too early to ask these questions. Learning should be done step by step. You should at least master the Loomis charm before you can think of more powerful spells, right?" This statement made sense. Bruce then approached his cousin with a request. "Can I borrow your wand to try out the magic I just did?" Borrowing a wand wasn't impossible. Hermione handed Bruce her own grapevine wand, a hint of a smile in her voice. "It's okay if you want to try, but it's not easy. I've been practicing for a long time, Loomis." After receiving the wand, Bruce recalled Hermione's casting and imitated the spell. The tip of the wand suddenly glowed brightly, this glow far exceeding the previous one's intensity. Hermione's eyes widened, her expression as if she had seen a ghost. "So that's how it is." Bruce extinguished the glow and felt the changes within him. It seemed as if more magic was flowing. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. "How did you do that?" Hermione suddenly screamed. Bruce's casual behavior almost shattered her pride as a sister. How could it be possible? Bruce hadn't even read the book, he'd just watched her demonstrate it once, and he'd performed the spell perfectly. Hermione couldn't accept it. Bruce was puzzled. "Didn't you just teach me?" Hermione had demonstrated it completely in front of him, so it was normal for her to learn it? "It shouldn't be that difficult, right?" He handed the wand back to Hermione. Hermione took it silently, then, head down, scurried back to her room. The door slammed shut with a clang. Bruce scratched his head, bewildered. "Did I do something wrong?" Never mind, girls' minds were always hard to predict. He recalled the spell and felt a sudden realization he hadn't experienced before. The feeling of magic flowing through his body and then releasing it was truly different. "I don't think a wand is necessary." Bruce twisted his wrist, vaguely feeling that with a little practice, he could perform the luminescent charm even without one. This was a good thing. Bruce had never really liked the wand as a medium. With a wand, you can cast spells, without one, you can't. How could magic be so inconvenient? Bruce's preferred form of magic involved channeling magic power into his fists and then striking them hard, each one hitting the flesh. He assumed a boxing stance and punched the air a few times. Then he shook his head in dismay. "No, my strength and magic power are too low right now." Bruce stood up from the sofa and saw the magic textbook Hermione had left. "How about I read it myself first?" "What's going on?" Katoom was genuinely puzzled. Ever since the power feedback began, his magic power had been accumulating almost continuously. Even if it was 10 times the efficiency, wasn't it too fast? It hadn't stopped since just now. What had Bruce done? Finally, after more than 20 minutes, the rate of increase in magic power slowed. It wasn't that Bruce had reached a bottleneck. It was that he had finished the book. Katoom didn't understand this, but the growth he'd experienced in that short period of time had transformed him. The magic power flowing through him now surpassed that of the average Auror. Even compared to some of the professors at Hogwarts, he held his own. And it had only been 20 minutes. I really underestimated Bruce. This guy's initiative is far greater than mine. Katoom suddenly had a very strange thought. He really didn't need to worry about anything himself. He just had to take Bruce to different worlds. Given Bruce's personality, he would naturally strive to become the strongest being in that world. Just like now. Speaking of which, it seems I can now use some means to deal with this diadem. He lowered his head, looking at the diadem he grasped. The fragments of Voldemort's soul within it made him shudder. Chapter 11. Wayne shuddered. Katoom's idea was simple. Horcruxes were imbued with powerful dark magic, and simply possessing them could have negative consequences. This was because Voldemort's soul, constantly influencing its bearer, constantly influenced its owner. But conversely, Voldemort's soul itself held immense value. It contained Voldemort's own memories. Just as the diary held the memory of 16-year-old Tom Riddle, the diadem held the Voldemort who, years after graduation, wanted to return to school as a teacher. Katoom didn't want Voldemort's soul, but his memories. Specifically, the memories of his countless magical experiences, which contained a wealth of knowledge impossible to learn from textbooks. If he could extract these memories, they would be excellent teaching material. By handing them to Bruce, Katoom could reap a tenfold reward. However, achieving this wasn't easy. First, he had to learn spells related to memory, such as the Confusion Charm, the Memory Charm, and the Legilimency Charm. Then, he had to master the crafting of Horcruxes before he could attempt to release the memories within them. The first spells were easy to learn, they could be found in any spell collection. Even some old textbooks could be found in the Room of Requirement. However, the method for creating a Horcrux was only documented in the book, Advanced Dark Arts Unveiled, which was currently kept in Dumbledore's office. Obtaining it would be a bit of a hassle. Guess I'll have to wait until Bruce starts school and find a way to get into Dumbledore's office, Katoom thought, when a bizarre idea struck him. He cast his gaze upon the diadem, muttering to himself, is there a chance I can trick it out of the Horcrux myself? At the Granger residence, Bruce closed his textbook and silently recited the spells he had just memorized. A photographic memory wasn't a virtue for him, just a basic quality. He had already mastered all the spells for his first year at Hogwarts. Unlocking, levitation, repairing. These elementary spells were ineffective, and Bruce was a little dissatisfied. How could he protect Gotham with just these? He began to think about purchasing textbooks for the higher grades. When you go buy textbooks, pick these up while you're at it. Meanwhile, Mrs. Granger had finished tidying Bruce's room and told him to go to bed. Thank you, Auntie. Bruce thanked her, went into his room, turned off the lights, and went to sleep. He had just closed his eyes when suddenly, like a flash of lightning, he opened them, goosebumps covering his skin. With his increased magical power, Bruce's perception had also increased, and he occasionally sensed impending danger. It was this sense that sent a shudder through Bruce. Danger was approaching. Bruce suppressed his frantic heartbeat, staring into the darkness, and silently prayed to himself. Calm, calm. Though only 11 years old, Bruce didn't scream like other children. His experiences had taught him that in any danger, fear is the greatest enemy. He began to whisper the owl's name in his mind, Katoom. At that moment, hundreds of kilometers away in Hogwarts, Katoom suddenly raised his head. He and Bruce had this connection. As long as they were in the same world, they could communicate, no matter the distance. Bruce's sudden call couldn't have been because he missed her, that couldn't be possible. The only reason was that something unexpected had happened. What's wrong? Katoom responded. Bruce was at a loss for words. He had no idea where his ability to sense danger came from. So he could only state the truth. I sense danger approaching, and it's probably coming for me. At this point, Bruce felt a sudden pang of sadness. If he had had this ability earlier, his parents wouldn't have suffered such a tragedy. Katoom understood immediately. It was probably Bruce's intuition, enhanced by his exposure to magic. He didn't dwell on it, realizing immediately that the pursuers from the DC world were already approaching. So quickly, not even a day had passed. Did you see what they looked like? Katoom's tone remained unchanged, but inside he was starting to get nervous. If it was one of those vicious DC villains, they would kill civilians without mercy, and the Grangers might be implicated. He looked around, found a secluded place, and placed a crown there. He then flew out of the Room of Requirement, preparing to leave Hogwarts. By this time, his magical energy had surged, significantly increasing his return speed. He'd be back in London in about half an hour. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm going to escape through the window now, Bruce said with forced composure. The Grangers have been very good to me. I can't let them get in trouble. The two of them were on the same page. Katoom, already high in the sky, was silent for a moment before saying, all right, just head west. It's not a residential area, but there are some hidden spots along the way. He'd already observed that the Grangers lived in the suburbs, and there were woods to the west. Bruce only needed to deal with the man for a while, and he'd be there himself. And this goal wouldn't be difficult to achieve. Katoom couldn't help but wonder about the pursuer's identity. He wouldn't be so powerful that he'd despair, that was the limit of the world's strength. And he must have a deep hatred for Bruce, otherwise he wouldn't be rushing to arrive first. That must be the villain from Gotham. If that were the case, Katoom wouldn't be so worried. Gotham's villains, though deranged, held a special affection for Batman. Even if they caught Bruce, they wouldn't strike immediately. They definitely seized this opportunity to express their hatred for Batman and lay out their plans. That would give Katoom plenty of time to arrive. Hearing Katoom's advice, Bruce made up his mind. His execution was sharp, and the moment he knew what he was doing, he leaped from the window. From the top of the building, Bruce plummeted. Wingardium Leviosa. At that moment, Bruce chanted the levitation spell. Several wooden planks flew over, catching Bruce and bringing him safely to the ground. I can cast a spell without a wand. This was Bruce's first attempt at wandless magic, and he was surprised to find it worked. Silence and darkness fell all around him, but Bruce was acutely aware of a cold gaze behind him. He turned sharply. Then he saw a tall, well-proportioned figure standing on the roof of the Granger's house. He wore a red metal hood over his face. In his hands were two gleaming pistols, aimed at Bruce. Chapter 12 encountered a strange problem. You should have noticed that this book's recommendation votes suddenly jumped to 112, an increase of 100. Furthermore, the back-end collections also inexplicably increased by 100. This happened at 3 p.m. sharp, and it wasn't me who did it. I suspect someone manipulated the data and added it to my book. I'm going to contact customer service to clarify this matter, so I'll update later today. Chapter 13 I only remember your betrayal of me. When Jason the Red Hood saw Bruce appear, he felt his blood boil. I finally found you. Memories of his time as Robin surfaced in his mind, then quickly shattered. Overflowing was only a deep-seated hatred. Those memories, once cherished, now became a source of pain for Jason. Jason Todd once considered Batman his father. As a child, Jason was a street thug who caught Bruce's attention after stealing tires from the Batmobile. Bruce recognized Jason's criminal talent and, determined to prevent him from developing a wrongdoing, adopted him as his son, later raising him as the second Robin. It sounded like a heartwarming story, but Bruce's personal problems were profound. His teaching methods were too harsh and strict. In all Jason's time with Bruce, he had never even seen Bruce smile at him. While Bruce's intentions were to discipline him, it was still a bit too cruel for a child. Jason, living with Bruce, never felt the warmth of family. Like a sullen child, he constantly wondered whether Bruce loved him or not. Desperate to prove himself, his methods in the fight against crime became increasingly extreme. In return, he received only Bruce's repeated criticism. Such a relationship was clearly headed for trouble, especially with the Joker involved. The Joker devised an intriguing plan. Using Jason's deceased mother as bait, he captured Jason and imprisoned him in Arkham Asylum. He also fabricated a videotape, which showed the Joker beating Jason to death with a steel pipe. This tape was eventually mailed to Batman. After Jason's disappearance, Bruce searched for him for a long time. But after seeing the Joker's videotape, he gave up. He showed no outward sadness, remaining the Dark Knight of Gotham City. Batman's weaknesses were never revealed. Even a few weeks later, he took in Tim Drake as the third Robin. The Bat-Lantern in Gotham City was on as usual, but Jason's nightmare had just begun. He was imprisoned in Arkham Asylum and tortured for a whole year by the Joker and the lunatics in the asylum. Jason hoped countless times that Batman would come to save him, but Batman never came. Pain and resentment twisted Jason's mind, and with the Joker's instigation, his former love for Bruce finally turned into hatred. Endless hatred. I used to trust you so much. At this moment, Jason was standing on the roof of the Granger family, staring at Bruce. But how long did it take you to replace me? A week? A month? I used to trust you so much, but you left me there to die. Even after you knew I was killed by the Joker, you were unwilling to avenge me. Jason was gritting his teeth. His hatred for Bruce came from two main sources. One was that Bruce had abandoned him and quickly found a replacement, the third Robin. The other was that Batman, knowing full well that the Joker was his killer, was unwilling to kill him to avenge him. For Jason, if Batman had been killed by the Joker, he would have killed the Joker at all costs to avenge Bruce. Thousands of words condensed into one sentence. Batman had betrayed Jason. Now he had transformed into the Red Hood and returned from hell. Bruce Wayne, you can go to hell. Jason leaped from the rooftop and landed steadily on the ground. At this moment, Bruce actually had no idea who was in front of him. Jason's hatred came from Batman's future, which had nothing to do with the current 11-year-old Bruce. But Jason didn't care. Since they were both Bruce Wayne. And this Bruce even came from the main universe, revenge on him would be even more satisfying. Killing him in advance would also make his own side of the main universe suffer less. Bruce stepped back step by step, trying to stay away from this dangerous man who suddenly appeared. The Dark Knight, the patron saint of Gotham. Jason's eyes under the mask revealed a hint of pleasure. Look at you now, how embarrassed you are. Bruce was still retreating, like a panicked child, totally unaware of how to face this crisis. Jason said mockingly, you always taught me to be calm and obedient to the truth, but now look at yourself, it seems that you haven't done it, I don't know you. Finally, facing Jason, Bruce said the first sentence. And the tone of this sentence was not at all like the fear he had just shown. On the contrary, Bruce was now extremely calm. Is the current situation terrible? Bruce recalled the alley where his parents died in front of him. That was the night when he was most helpless and scared. He had experienced the greatest pain in his life, and everything after that was trivial. But I know you. Jason was enraged by Bruce's response. He raised his pistol to Bruce's forehead and shouted, if you confess to me now, I can still give you a quick death. But Bruce's response did not change at all. I said, I don't know you. Not only that, he finally started the action he had been planning for a long time. Tarantella dance. Bruce suddenly stretched out his arms, opened his palms, and recited the dance spell in elementary spells. What are you doing? Jason was suddenly stunned, and then his whole body began to twitch out of control. His legs kept twitching, as if he was dancing a quick step. What's going on? Jason knew that this should be a kind of magic-like power, which also existed in his own world. But why did Bruce know this trick, and where did he learn it from? I knew you had been hiding something from me. Jason hated himself even more. He had been with Bruce for so long, but he didn't even know that he had learned magic at the age of 11. Bruce didn't care about that. He seized the opportunity created now and took the initiative to attack and seek a glimmer of hope for himself. Wingardium Leviosa. He chanted the levitation spell again, and the two guns in Jason's hands suddenly floated up. Then one fell to the ground and Bruce caught the other. Bruce gripped the pistols tightly with both hands and pointed them at Jason's legs. He didn't want to kill, but he didn't mind eliminating the enemy's ability to move. Click, Bruce squeezed the trigger, and the pistol unexpectedly jammed. This situation only proved that the gun was empty. How could it be possible? Bruce couldn't believe that a killer who came to kill him had no bullets in his gun. Huh? Jason suddenly sneered, and in the constant struggle of willpower, his dancing steps finally stopped. Then, with lightning speed, he kicked Bruce away. I didn't mean to use a gun against you. Jason said coldly, you don't deserve it. Chapter 14 Bat Cloud. Bruce collapsed to the ground, clutching his stomach. The pain was severe, but bearable. He had only one thought, is this guy sick? If there were no bullets in the gun, why did you point it at my head? Jason scooped up the fallen gun with his foot, took it, and brought it back to his waist. He pressed his hand against the hood, pulling it off. A scarred young face appeared before Bruce. It's okay if you don't recognize me, but see these scars? They're all your fault. Jason slowly approached, each step adding to Bruce's pressure. The situation was becoming increasingly urgent, and Bruce's mind was racing to find a solution. The spells in elementary spells were few and far between. The only one he could think of that could cause some damage was the slicing curse. But it was still too weak to be used against the enemy. What should he do? Just then, the sky gradually filled with dark clouds. Jason pulled a baton from his waist and swung it in the air. The iron rod extended, a whirring sound as it cut through the air. The Joker had assaulted Jason countless times with a crowbar, now it was time for Bruce to experience the same pain. Then he saw Bruce's childish face again. Was using a crowbar against a child a bit too much? Jason hesitated for a moment, then retracted his crowbar. Fists would suffice. Bruce watched Jason perform, his crowbar raised, then retracted, his face ablaze with fury, then a wave of hesitation. Whenever Jason's face shone with anger, Bruce could sense the danger, he truly wanted to kill him. But as Jason hesitated, the sense of danger vanished in an instant. This led Bruce to a conclusion, The man before him might be suffering from schizophrenia, with two separate personalities straining against each other. If that was the case, perhaps he could exploit this situation. He clutched his stomach and struggled to stand, but the very act of doing so instantly triggered Jason's reaction. Trying to escape, at this point, Jason finally, without hesitation, scooped Bruce up and raised his hand to smack him. Bruce was ready to be beaten, but after waiting for a moment, nothing happened. Jason picked up Bruce and led him to a tree. Pulling out a rope from somewhere, he tied Bruce to the tree in a few seconds. "I'm here to kill you. I will kill you. This is what I've been waiting for." Jason kept muttering these words, not to Bruce, but to himself. Bruce was tied to the tree and couldn't move. He watched Jason walk back and forth in front of him, feeling extremely conflicted. He clenched and unclenched his fists. He clearly had deep hatred in his heart, but he couldn't bring himself to do it at the critical moment. This person didn't seem as dangerous as he had imagined. Bruce had this idea, so he asked tentatively, "Are you familiar with my future self?" "Yes. Of course I am." This sentence saved Jason, and he could finally put on a fierce look again. Jason roared, "I trusted you so much, and yet you betrayed me. Then can you tell me your story?" Bruce, desperate at this point, began to play to his age, playing a harmless role, attempting to connect with Jason. This was a skill every superhero must master. "We need to talk." "I don't have much to talk about with you." Jason gritted his teeth. "Yes, I used to admire you, and you were very important to me." Though he claimed he didn't want to talk, Jason unknowingly began to recount his past with Bruce. The more Bruce listened, the more he felt that the Bruce Jason described didn't resemble him. Yes, Bruce had indeed dreamed of becoming a hero, protecting Gotham and driving evil from his home. But the Bruce Jason described was too twisted, old-fashioned, and completely unsympathetic. It was as if he had completely shut himself off, not allowing anyone to enter his heart. Was this really him? Would he become like this in the future? Bruce couldn't find an answer for a moment, but he had a vague feeling that the answer was yes. Seeing Bruce's pensive expression, Jason said coldly, "It seems you're also frightened by your future self. How pitiful. Bruce, you don't even approve of your grown-up self. How sad." After Jason finished these words, a sense of relief washed over him. He wasn't in a rush to kill Bruce anymore. He simply wanted to take him back, as agreed. Back to the DC universe. He wanted to knock Bruce unconscious first, then proceed. But just then, he saw Bruce's expression shift from solemn to relaxed. It was as if, after all this delay, help had finally arrived. "Who is it?" Before Jason could even turn around, something strange happened. From his nostrils, mouth, and even his clothes, a swarm of bats suddenly flew out, swarming around him and biting at his body. The bats continued to multiply, seemingly endless, and from a distance, they seemed like a dark cloud enveloping Jason. Jason waved his arms repeatedly, trying to shoo away the creatures of the night, but it was no use. Instead, more bats flew out of his sleeves as he waved. What's going on? Jason was completely confused as to what was happening, why this had happened. Bats, this iconic creature, sparked a possibility. Could it be Batman has arrived? Not a Bruce tied to the tree, but an adult Batman from another universe. Maybe even the Batman from his own universe. Bruce, Jason wanted to roar to the heavens, but he opened his mouth, and countless more bats flew out. Words were lost, and he could only express his anger through action. There was no other way now. Annoyed by the swarm of bats, Jason was unable to move. His only option was to retreat temporarily. "I'll come back for you." He cast one last glance at Bruce, then quickly fled, driven away by the bats. Bruce had been watching the scene. He was afraid of bats, but today, the bats had saved him. "Isn't this spell pretty good?" Suddenly, Katoom's voice rang out beside Bruce's ears, and he flapped his wings and landed on Bruce's shoulder. "The bat spell. I saw it in an old book in the room of requirement. It's powerful," Bruce muttered. "Can you teach me?" "No," Katoom shook his head. "Your current magic skills are only at the peak of the 1st grade. When you reach the great perfection in the 4th grade, I will teach you." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Diagon Alley. Bruce fell to the ground after the ropes untied him. He climbed to his feet, his body aching uncontrollably. Katoom said, "I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky this time. The first person to arrive is Jason Todd." Well, it felt both unexpected and understandable. Jason's hatred for Bruce at this stage was indeed the deepest. But despite his outbursts, he probably wouldn't be able to bring himself to kill Bruce. And this was a younger Bruce. Bruce twisted his wrist, ignoring Katoom's rants. Belatedly, he said, "That guy just kept calling me Batman. Is that what I'm going to be, Bat?" Bruce wondered what had motivated him to choose such a name. "Do you hate the name Batman?" Katoom asked. "Then you could have chosen something else, like Captain Gotham." "No, I don't hate it." Bruce shook his head, chewing on the Batman moniker. The more he thought about it, the better the title seemed. Bats were the creatures he feared most, and he must have chosen the name Batman to instill the same fear in his enemies. Katoom shrugged, flapping his wings as he prepared to return. The feud between Bruce and the Bat couldn't be explained in a few words. It involved a timeline spanning hundreds of thousands of years. In the pivotal event of Final Crisis, Batman, after losing his memory, was transported to prehistoric times by Darkseid. It was during that time that Barbatos saw Batman and, recognizing his resemblance to himself, chose him as the portal for his invasion of the overworld. The details won't matter, the key point is clear: Bruce's becoming Batman was a destiny determined hundreds of thousands of years ago. Katoom flew ahead, Bruce silently following behind. The more he thought about it, the more dread he felt. He'd been too careless before, completely defenseless against Jason. If it weren't for a strange coincidence, he'd probably be dead. No, this couldn't happen again. Contingency plan. The word suddenly popped into Bruce's mind. That's right, no matter what happens, you should be prepared in advance. And you can't just have one plan, you need multiple plans. If one plan fails, there's always another to fill in. Bruce began to make it clear in his mind that he must always have a plan B. Only in this way could he feel safe. He had so many enemies. The next morning, the Grangers took Bruce to London. "We're going to buy you school supplies," Mrs. Granger said with a smile from the passenger seat. Hermione sat in the back seat with her head lowered, her tousled hair obscuring her face, but it was clear she was still sulking. "Hermione," Mrs. Granger said with resignation. She already knew what had happened between the two children. She knew her daughter well. She had always had a relentless spirit, and Bruce's apparent magical talent last night had certainly hit her hard. Hermione looked up, her expression forced with indifference. "I'm fine, Mom." Mrs. Granger said no more, thinking it was good for her child to experience a little setback. Showing her that there are people who are better than you could ever be would also help Hermione lessen her arrogance. The car drove all the way to London, soon arriving at Charing Cross Road and stopping in front of a small, dingy pub. Normally, young Muggle-born wizards would be personally visited by professors to guide them into the magical world. But the Grangers had already gone through the process once before Hermione received her notice, and with that experience, they could come on their own this time. "This is the Leaky Cauldron, and from here you can get to the wizarding world," Hermione whispered to Bruce. Though her heart still hung in the balance, she continued to play the role of older sister. "Thank you," Bruce whispered back. Hermione glanced at Bruce, and perhaps because he was pleasing her, her anger dissipated considerably. They got out of the car and walked through the pub to a small, walled courtyard, where only trash cans and weeds lay. Hermione stood on tiptoe, raised her wand, and tapped a tile 3 times. The brick that had been struck trembled, and the entire wall began to shift. A small hole appeared in the middle, growing larger and larger. Soon, a wide archway opened before them, leading to a winding, endless cobblestone street. "Welcome to Diagon Alley." Hermione's confidence returned instantly. She sheathed her wand and lifted her chin slightly. To the uninitiated, she might have mistaken Diagon Alley for her. Diagon Alley is a popular wizarding commercial street, lined with a dazzling array of shops displaying all sorts of strange signs and merchandise. "Let's go to Gringotts first to exchange money. 50 galleons should be enough, and I have my own money." Bruce wasn't used to having to pay for everything. Although it was out of his aunt's concern, he still felt it was better to pay for it himself. It wasn't like he couldn't afford it. It took a while for Bruce to explain that he had inherited the Wayne family fortune. Although he didn't specify the amount, his words conveyed the underlying message. Bruce Wayne, was a wealthy man. Mrs. Granger finally gave in, agreeing that Bruce would pay for the transaction himself. They quickly exchanged pounds for galleons at Gringotts, and Bruce saw goblins for the first time. They were truly hideous creatures. Bruce simply watched as Mr. Granger exchanged money, overhearing snippets of his conversation with the goblin. He had a vague idea that the wizarding world's exchange rates seemed flawed. Even now, he could imagine a way to crash their market. Just then, Katoom flew onto Bruce's shoulder. "Don't let your imagination run wild, kid." He seemed to know what Bruce was planning. Finance is always just a means to an end. The underlying logic of society is violence. If you destroy wizard finance, they'll resort to violence to reclaim what's theirs. The only ones who will suffer are the Muggle masses. Bruce immediately dismissed his previous thoughts. As Mr. Granger exchanged money, Hermione and Bruce chatted. "I've read in advance that Hogwarts has 4 major houses: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw. Each house represents a different quality. I think I'll go to Ravenclaw. I've heard it's full of intelligent wizards." "4 major houses?" Bruce asked. "What qualities do these houses represent?" "I know that," Katoom interrupted again. "They represent Corn, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Sinch." Chapter 16: The Supreme Wand Made by the Demon King. The owl was talking strangely again. Bruce had begun to grow accustomed to Katoom's style of speech, knowing that sometimes the meaning of the words uttered by an owl wasn't something to be delved into. He'd also noticed that Katoom's demeanor had changed slightly since returning from Hogwarts. He no longer looked like a simple owl. For example, his wings were now capable of performing a variety of complex movements, as nimble as a human hand. Just now, Katoom was rubbing his wings against Bruce's head, a bit like rubbing a dog's head. Bruce slapped Katoom's wings away and returned his attention to his conversation with Hermione. Hermione was answering a question. "I only read about it in the book. Gryffindor represents courage and justice, Hufflepuff represents kindness and loyalty, Ravenclaw represents erudition and wisdom, and Slytherin represents ambition and honor. All incoming students will be sorted into these 4 houses. I don't know the exact division, but there might be an exam." Bruce also became interested and began to think about which college he would be sorted into. However, at this time, no, Katoom said in Bruce's ear again. "In fact, Hogwarts also has a hidden college called Azkaban. Only students with great wisdom and courage can enter." "Bruce, Azkaban is your best choice." "Really?" Bruce was stunned. There was such a hidden college in Hogwarts. Is it to cultivate the best students? He is worthy of being the Demon King. He actually knew such a secret. "Believe me, Bruce, I can help you," Katoom assured Bruce. "As long as you have my teaching, you will definitely be able to enter Azkaban." Bruce had no reason to refuse. He came to this world to learn and gain the ability to change Gotham. If he could enter the hidden college, it would of course be the best. "Then I'll leave it to you. Don't worry, leave it to me." Katoom flapped his wings on his chest, as if to say, "Don't worry about me." Hermione was stunned watching from the side. Although she didn't understand what Katoom was saying, she could tell from such human-like actions that this owl was extraordinary. Where did Bruce get it? Can he make one for her too? Soon, Mr. Granger finished changing the galleons. They walked out of Gringotts with Bruce, and Mrs. Granger checked the shopping list attached to the admission notice. "Let's buy school uniforms first, then textbooks and potion equipment, and finally wands." But Hermione suddenly became very active. "Mom, you can buy the textbooks and cauldrons. I'll take Bruce to buy a wand first." She really wanted to know what kind of wand Bruce would get. Bruce didn't think this was a good idea. He wanted to buy some books for higher grades, but Katoom stopped him again. "Why spend that money? They are all in the Hogwarts library. In the wizarding world, truly valuable books are never placed in bookstores." For Katoom and Bruce now, the growth of their magic power is not a problem. They have no bottleneck. What they need is a spell that can effectively release this magic power. After comprehensive consideration, the restricted books area of Hogwarts is their best choice. Mrs. Granger agreed with Hermione's suggestion, so Hermione dragged Bruce to the small and shabby shop. The golden sign on the door had peeled off, and it read, "Ollivander, making fine wands since 382 BC." The shop was very small, and apart from the bench, there were only thousands of narrow boxes that almost reached the ceiling. "Wands will choose their own masters," Hermione explained enthusiastically. "Among so many wands, there must be a wand that has been waiting for your arrival." "I don't need a wand," Bruce thought to himself. He can cast spells without a wand, and wands are meaningless to him. "Hello again, Miss Hermione Granger. An old man came out from behind the counter. Grapevine, 10 3/4 inches, dragon nerve. It's a good wand, right? Great potential, strong adaptability. How is it to use? It works very well, Mr. Ollivander. Hermione always remained polite in front of outsiders. Then she introduced Bruce to Ollivander. This was her cousin, who also came to buy a wand. Another young wizard with potential. Ollivander glanced at Bruce and took out a long tape measure with silver scales from his pocket. Which hand do you use with your wand? I'm right-handed, Bruce replied. Then I roughly know. The tape measure flew from Ollivander's hand and began to operate on its own, measuring Bruce's size. Then he took a pile of long boxes from the shelf. Try this one, he said. Platinum, 11 1/2 inches, unicorn hair. Bruce took the wand, and just as he held it in his hand, Ollivander's hair began to stand on end for unknown reasons. No, no, Ollivander snatched the wand away with lightning speed, and then stuffed a new one in. Hawthorn wood, phoenix feather, 9 inches long. Try it, but as soon as Bruce tried, Ollivander himself seemed to be hit by an invisible blow and was knocked a long distance away. No, no, try this one. Ollivander got up from the ground and changed to a new one, ebony, dragon's heartstring, 8 3/4 inches. This one will work. It will definitely work. Bruce tried again. This time, Ollivander was hung upside down in the air, waving his hands around, looking extremely embarrassed. It was not until Bruce let go of the wand that Ollivander fell down with a plop. This situation continued to happen after that. Whenever Bruce held a new wand, Ollivander would be hurt. He kept trying and kept getting hurt. Bruce couldn't stand it anymore. Hermione had already opened her mouth wide and entered a state of shock and petrification. I understand, finally, before being completely tortured and broken, Ollivander grinned and came to a conclusion. Kid, I'm not good enough in my skills, Ollivander said weakly and trembling, his whole body as miserable as if he had been repeatedly run over by an elephant. None of the ones I made are suitable for you. You should go to other wand shops, such as Grigorovich's wand shop in Europe. Mr. Ollivander. Bruce was about to say something else when he saw Ollivander stuff 7 galleons into his pocket. He practically pleaded, Mr. Bruce, I'll pay for your wand. Please try another wand shop. Bruce and Hermione finally walked out of the shop, bewildered. This is impossible, Hermione said, feeling her entire world shaken. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Bruce consoled her. I don't really need a wand. No, you do, Katoom suddenly said from his shoulder. A first-year student casting spells without a wand is too conspicuous. A wand can be used as a shield, Bruce helplessly said, but you saw there's nothing suitable for me. That's Ollivander's poor craftsmanship. Look at mine. Wait a moment, the owl flew away, and a short while later, it returned with a short staff in its beak. He tossed it to Bruce. Try this. Handcrafted by the demon lord Katoom himself, it's a supreme wand, unmatched in the world, the supreme wand. Bruce ran his finger over the wand, and the wood chips on it were not even scraped clean. It's just an ordinary wooden stick, right? Or you just shaved it. It's the supreme wand, Katoom emphasized again, sycamore wood, 14 inches, and the core is the painstaking effort of the Demon King, 14 inches. This is no longer a wand, but a stick for beating people. Bruce was completely speechless. Sycamore wood, the most common ornamental wood on the streets of London. According to this, Bruce could just break off a branch from the roadside and it would be the new supreme wand. What made him even more unbearable was the material of the core. What painstaking effort of the Demon King. Katoom, this guy, wouldn't even pluck a feather? Chapter 17, Endless. Bruce put the supreme wand away, not wanting to say anything more. Katoom's craftsmanship was actually quite good. In just a few moments, he'd crafted a truly impressive wand. Hermione, watching from the side, felt more and more that Bruce's owl was something special. So human. Knowing his owner was upset because he couldn't buy a wand, he actually brought a stick to comfort Bruce. She really wanted one. But besides all that, Hermione was genuinely worried about Bruce. If he couldn't buy a wand, wouldn't it mean he couldn't enroll in school? It's okay, Hermione, I can buy one somewhere else. Bruce racked his brains for an excuse. Have you forgotten the Wayne family's roots are in America? Maybe they have connections to the wizarding world. I can get a wand from America. Don't worry, I'll definitely have it before school starts. Hermione was skeptical, but she couldn't think of a better solution. She couldn't help but feel a bit of a problem with Ollivander's one shop. They claimed to be a 1,000-year-old shop, but this was all they could do. Bruce soon met up with Mrs. Granger and the others. Hermione didn't tell the adults about the incident, fearing they might worry. Since Bruce said he could handle it, she decided to trust him for now. After buying their school uniforms, they set off on their return journey. All preparations for school were complete, all that was left was the wait for the start of school. With only 6 months left, the Grangers had applied for Bruce's admission to Hermione's elementary school. Although only 6 months remained, Mrs. Granger still wanted Bruce to be able to socialize with more peers. Growing up in an orphanage can easily foster a withdrawn personality. Hermione's intentions were good, but it was her daughter, Hermione, who suffered. To better integrate Bruce into the lives of her peers, he was placed in Hermione's class. In the following days, Hermione witnessed the true essence of total dominance. Bruce was a human being, a perfect human being. Not only did he possess a photographic memory and master any knowledge he learned the hard way, but he was also incredibly charming, easily winning the affections of his classmates. What made Hermione even more aware of the gap was Bruce's almost brutal self-control. He treated every day like a crucial mission, meticulously planning and utilizing every moment from morning to night. Physical training, magical power boosting, mental exercises. This almost rigorous schedule became Bruce's daily routine. He even felt that the intensity wasn't enough. Hermione no longer felt any envy of Bruce, she sensed an insurmountable gap. Hermione, the king of curmudgeons, had finally met someone even more curmudgeon-like. In Bruce's room, Katoom yawned and popped a piece of gummy candy into his mouth. It was a snack Mrs. Granger had prepared for Bruce, but Bruce never ate it, so it all ended up in Katoom's stomach. "If you keep up this, you'll have problems sooner or later," Katoom said. "You're only 11, not fully developed yet. Your body can't handle this kind of physical training." Bruce didn't respond immediately. He continued in his plank position, sweat dripping down his cheeks and onto the floor. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice childish yet firm, but Barbatos' pursuers could be here at any moment. "Katoon. I can't stop. Resting would be surrendering, and I don't want to regret it," Katoon said helplessly. "Whatever." After experiencing the death of his parents and Jason's pursuit, Bruce had felt the threat of death twice, something he absolutely could not tolerate. His character was inherently filled with paranoia. After becoming Batman, Bruce was able to implant a virus into his teammate Cyborg shortly after meeting him. He was simply afraid that Cyborg would become an enemy. Batman had a plan to destroy not just Cyborg but all of his Justice League teammates, even including his own. To the point that DC villains no longer devised evil plans, they simply stole Batman's. How insecure must a person be to become like this? With Jason still on the loose and more pursuers imminent, Bruce lived in constant anxiety. Pressure can be motivating, but forcing yourself to push yourself this hard will only drive you crazy, Katoom grumbled, then let Bruce go. He couldn't easily change Bruce's mind, the man was terrifyingly paranoid. However, thanks to Bruce's dedication, Katoom's physical fitness had skyrocketed. After all, it was a tenfold return. Seriously, Katoom could now withstand gunfire with just his physical strength. Bruce continued his training, thinking to himself, Jason is definitely improving. He'll come back again. Last time, he hesitated and failed. This time, I can't pin my hopes on the enemy. The next time he met Jason, Bruce had to be able to defeat him head-on. Nocturne Alley. This place, home to dark wizards and dark magic, was always shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Jason Todd arrived, twin pistols slung from his waist. Beside him was a man in tattered wizard robes, hunched over, with a massive wart on his pointed nose. This was a dark wizard, whose exact name was unknown. After a previous bat attack and a panicked retreat, Jason quickly realized that the bats weren't Batman's doing, but rather a magical attack. After some time exploring, Jason discovered that this world appeared to be no different from the ordinary world, devoid of any supernatural powers. Yet, he had personally experienced the magic. This could only mean one thing: the magical world was isolated from the real world, and that magic was likely the primary supernatural power in this world. To prevent himself from being overwhelmed by magic again, Jason decided to engage with the magical world. He spent a long time, using the detective skills taught by Batman, to track down the dark wizard. He seemed to have lost his magical powers for some reason and urgently needed a large sum of money to purchase the materials to create a potion to break the curse. Jason could provide this money. The condition was that he would take Jason into the magical world, ideally gaining some magical abilities along the way. The two sides quickly reached a deal, leading to the current scene. The diagon alley we just passed looked so normal, but I didn't expect there was such a dark place hidden deep inside, Jason complained and followed the dark wizard into the depths of Nocturne Alley. As they walked along the road, they met a sickly man. He didn't look old, but his face was wrinkled prematurely, his hair was gray, and his robes were full of patches. The dark wizard arched his nose and recognized the man. Remus Lupin, he said with disgust, disgusting werewolf. Chapter 18, The Alliance of Unwelcome People. Werewolf? Jason was familiar with the term. In the DC universe, there were werewolves, teammates of Frankenstein, superheroes barely even considered third tier. He keenly sensed the tinge of disgust radiating from the dark wizard. It seemed werewolves weren't a welcome sight in this world. When Lupin brushed past them, the dark wizard immediately wiped his arm, as if the mere presence of a werewolf made him feel viscerally uncomfortable. The dark wizard scoffed, "Stay away from those creatures from now on. They're a bunch of sewer dwellers, how amusing." Jason, in turn, became intrigued by werewolves. What kind of blasphemous creatures could even be so disdained by this lowly dark wizard? Do you really hate werewolves? Hate? That's too mild a word. They're just a bunch of soulless, evil creatures who deserve to die. The dark wizard began to describe the details of the werewolves, as he was paid to do. Leukosis is a magical disease. No one is born a werewolf, the dark wizard said. It spreads through contact between saliva and blood. You know, when a transformed werewolf bites someone, the bitten person becomes a werewolf too. At this point, he began rubbing his skin again, as if he had been infected by lycanthropy. The leader of these guys is Fenrir Greyback, a mad werewolf who is dedicated to infecting more people, especially children. In short, you should stay away from werewolves from now on, children? Jason's eyes suddenly narrowed. A group of people who targeted children? Aren't these the worst kind of criminals? He placed his hand on the gun at his waist and asked nonchalantly, "Then why don't you deal with these guys?" "I mean, kill them all." The dark wizard immediately shook his head. "Kill all the werewolves? That would be too costly. They're very powerful together. But then again, if you find werewolves disgusting and want to kill a few to vent your anger, Lupin is a good choice. He's an outlier among werewolves. Humans hate him, and werewolves shun him too. This guy was born to be disliked by everyone." The dark wizard chuckled eerily, as if he, despite his utter despair, had found a long-lost sense of superiority in Lupin. Little did he know that his last words struck at the deepest corner of Jason's heart. Jason's tone hardened. No one is born to be disliked. Even though he was born into a family of criminals and betrayed by his adoptive father, Jason did not believe anyone had the right to dislike him. The dark wizard, stunned by Jason's expression, quickly explained, "I'm talking about Lupin, the werewolf. Not you." Jason knew this, of course. But he couldn't help but turn back, watching Lupin's back. He hadn't actually gone far. He must have heard what the dark wizard had just said, yet he hadn't turned back, not daring to speak up for himself. Such a coward. Jason suddenly felt a surge of inexplicable anger. How could someone so ostracized by the world not even dare to resist? "Stop!" For some reason, he shouted sharply, stopping Lupin as he retreated. The dark wizard shuddered at the sound, glancing from Jason to Lupin, who turned back in confusion. "What are you going to do?" The dark wizard felt his voice tremble. "Nothing." Jason strode towards Lupin. "I'm just trying to reform a coward." Bang! Lupin was pinned against the wall, gnashing in pain. He sensed something was amiss as Jason approached him. He'd just pulled his wand from his chest, only to be disarmed in the blink of an eye. Lupin didn't even see how it was done. Meanwhile, Jason held Lupin's wand in his hand, turning it over and over with fascination. "Is this the source of your wizarding power? Without it, you can't do anything." "Give it back," Lupin said weakly. "Shut up," Jason interrupted Lupin harshly, his expression of worthlessness growing more and more exasperated. "I heard you're a werewolf? And you're ostracized by humans and your own people? What have you done to deserve such a low life?" "I don't need to explain." Lupin was already breathless. The full moon was approaching, and he was at his weakest. "There's really no need. Remember your fortitude." Jason put Lupin's wand away, clearly unwilling to return it. Lupin was terrified. Sure, there were robberies in the wizarding world, but he'd never heard of anyone robbing a wand. Almost everyone had one. More importantly, if Lupin's wand was stolen, he wouldn't have the money to buy a new one. I don't want your wand. I'll just keep it in my hand and savor it, Jason told Lupin. My name is Jason Todd, and unless something unexpected happens, I'll be staying here for a long time. If you want your wand back, you can always come to me, but you'll have to agree to a few small conditions. Lupin almost laughed out loud. He'd never seen such a shameless guy. Ahem, stop talking. I want my wand now. Oh, not now, Jason said nonchalantly. I need to study it. Of course, I won't damage it. If you're worried, you can stay with me for a while. I'm short on help. Huh? Lupin was suddenly stunned. Wasn't this guy robbing him just now? Why did he seem to want to take him in now? To be honest, Lupin was really miserable now. He originally came to Nocturne Alley because he heard a rumor that the potion master Damocles had invented a wolfsbane potion that could keep werewolves awake when they transformed into wolves. This was a blessing for all werewolves, but there was only one bad thing. The wolfsbane potion was too expensive, and Lupin spent all his money to buy a small portion in Nocturne Alley. After buying it, he could hardly afford to eat. Now that Jason asked him to follow him, Lupin subconsciously had only one question. Are food and accommodations provided? Then he realized that this would not work. The other party might be an evil wizard who chose a werewolf as his helper. If you don't want to, forget it. Jason didn't have the patience to listen to others reject him. He took out Lupin's wand and shook it in front of him. But you may not be able to get this thing. Damn it, Lupin wanted to stick to his bottom line, but Jason really had a good grasp of people's hearts. First, he controlled Lupin's wand, and then gave him the help he needed most. Most importantly, he didn't make any excessive demands. If Jason asked Lupin to do something bad right now, he would definitely not agree. But he didn't mention it, and Lupin didn't even know what to refuse. Don't worry, werewolf friend, Jason said finally, I won't ask you to do anything against my principles. In fact, I just want to study your magic. Study magic? Yes, Jason nodded. I have an enemy who can cast magic, and I want to know how to break those spells. This request is not too much, right? This does not sound too much? But why me? Lupin didn't understand. There were many wizards better than him. Of course there is a reason for looking for you. Jason's mouth curled up with a faint smile. I think unpopular people like us should form an alliance. As soon as the words fell, the dark wizard who had been eating melons beside him was suddenly stunned, then pointed at himself and said, Does it include me? No way, I am quite popular. Chapter 19 The Boy Who Lived. Time flew by. Ever since Jason attacked Bruce, he seemed to have gone dormant, never seen again. It's unclear whether he'd given up, unable to resolve the magic, or perhaps he was hatching some larger plan. All in all, Bruce had enjoyed a relatively peaceful 6 months, with no other DC villains even pursuing him. Of course, it's possible they were there, but simply didn't find their target. After all, not every villain knew Batman's real name was Bruce Wayne. 11-year-old Bruce had entered puberty, his body growing like a string, now a head taller than Hermione. On the morning of September 1st, Mrs. Granger double-checked Hermione and Bruce's luggage, making sure nothing was missing before leaving. The car drove all the way to King's Cross Station. Remember, Hermione, you must take good care of your brother at school and don't let him be bullied. Hearing her mother's words, Hermione couldn't help but glance at Bruce. Bruce being bullied? Such a niche text, Hermione couldn't even imagine what that scene would be like. Katoom, standing on Bruce's shoulder, was somewhat dissatisfied. Why only protect Bruce? Doesn't a handsome owl need protection? Shut up, Bruce said. Because of the contract, Bruce and Katoom could communicate telepathically, unheard by anyone else. Furthermore, when Katoom spoke human language, Bruce was the only one who could understand it. This meant that Bruce was the only one to suffer when Katoom babbled incoherently. Okay, time to go. They were bound for platform 9 and 3/4, and Hermione already knew how to get there when she received her acceptance letter. Bruce followed Hermione, pushing the stroller, and together they passed through the wall between platforms 9 and 10, disappearing into King's Cross Station. Mrs. Granger finally couldn't hold back her sobs. Mr. Granger hugged his wife tightly, whispering solace. It's okay, they'll be back by Christmas. A crimson steam locomotive stopped at the platform, the wall they had come from now a wrought iron archway. A sign on the train read, Hogwarts Express. Hermione and Bruce arrived early, and once they boarded, They easily found their compartment. Bruce helped Hermione load her luggage onto the luggage rack, and they sat facing each other as the crowd outside the window gradually grew. A cacophony of voices filled the air, different people talking. "Grandma, I lost my toad again, let's see it. Lee, come on, oh my god, could you be her?" But Hermione couldn't hear any of this, she was lost in her own thoughts. They all brought pets. Hermione looked at the crowd, feeling unhappy. Mrs. Granger had previously used the excuse that Hermione was too young to buy her an owl. But now, seeing the other young wizards with their own pets, Hermione felt cheated. Bruce consoled Hermione, saying, "It's okay. If you need to deliver a letter, I can lend you Katoom, you're such a good person." Katoom's eyes widened. "Did you even ask for my opinion? I'm the Demon King, can I just borrow him?" Bruce didn't reply. He propped his head up and stared out the window, pretending to take in the scenery. "Hello, you guys." Suddenly, the compartment door opened, and a timid voice rang out. Bruce turned to see a round-faced boy standing outside, his head hunched. He looked like he was about to cry. "Can I sit here? The other compartments are all occupied by seniors, of course." Hermione patted the empty seat next to him. "You can sit here." The boy, looking relieved, clumsily dragged his luggage in. Hermione glared at Bruce, and Bruce had no choice but to stand up and help the boy with his luggage. Katoom whispered in Bruce's ear, "Tell him you're a senior too." Bruce ignored her. After the luggage was put away, the boy sat down next to Bruce, his expression etched with worry, as if disaster were imminent. It was Hermione who took the initiative, greeting him. "My name is Hermione Granger, and this is my cousin Bruce Wayne. What's your name, and why do you look so troubled?" "Hello, I'm Neville Longbottom," Neville said, a look of anguish on his face. "I lost my toad, it's my pet, Uncle Augie bought me, and if I can't find it, he won't let me go." He was practically on the verge of tears. Hermione quickly soothed him. It's okay. We can help you find it." "Right, Bruce." Bruce could only nod. Sometimes, Bruce wondered why the will of the universe, when assigning him an identity, had also given him a sister. Even if it wasn't real, it felt like some bloodline was suppressing him. Bruce always felt a sense of loss in Hermione's presence. The three children went their separate ways, questioning each compartment one by one. Every time Bruce opened a compartment, his presence immediately caught everyone's attention. If there were any senior students inside, they'd beg him for snacks. Finally, he returned with a pile of treats, only to be met with a sneer from Katoom. "Did you go begging? You didn't find any toads, but you did have lunch." Hermione and Neville returned, also unsuccessful, but Neville was in a much better mood, perhaps having finally come to terms with things. "We just saw Harry Potter." Hermione sat down and began sharing her experiences. "The boy who lived, the one who made it into the history books. He's mentioned in A Modern History of Magic, The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts, and important magical events of the 20th century." She repeatedly reminded Bruce of his identity, preparing for what she was about to say. Hermione had just demonstrated her magical prowess in front of Harry and his friends, which had left her feeling high and eager to share her experience. As expected, as long as Bruce wasn't around, she was no less capable than anyone else. "Harry Potter," Katoom suddenly sneered. "Humph, another orphan." At this moment, Bruce clenched his fists and wanted to kill Katoom. "Do you have to talk about orphans every day?" He suddenly glared at Katoom, thinking in his mind if there was any spell that could shut a person up forever. This time, Katoom didn't seem to feel Bruce's anger at all. "What are you looking at? Are you scared by Harry Potter's fame?" Katoom patted Bruce on the shoulder and comforted him from the bottom of his heart. "It's okay, be confident, you are also the boy who lived." Chapter 20 Giant Squid in the Great Lakes. It was already dark. Mountains and forests stretched across a deep purple sky. The train slowed to a crawl. Hogwarts was almost here. Neville was no longer as nervous as before. Perhaps the experience of Hermione knocking on doors with him had instilled in him a trust in her. He joined in the conversation between Hermione and Bruce. Hermione was still discussing Harry Potter, all the stories from books, but the topic had turned to you-know-who. Bruce and Hermione, both from the Muggle world, held no fear of Voldemort and referred to him by his first name. Neville's face suddenly changed. "You can't say that name." Bruce and Hermione turned around in confusion, only to see Neville's face flush crimson, his round face trembling. "My grandmother said that name has magical properties, and you can't say it by name." Neville's voice trembled, as if he was about to cry. Katoom's teasing voice echoed in Bruce's ear. Poor boy, he's terrified, just a single name held such a terrifying power. Bruce asked Katoom, perplexed, why is this happening? Is this some advanced spell, a spell? It's not that simple, Katoom said. It's the power of fear, a fear that comes from within, a fear that dares not even be spoken, the power of fear. Bruce, hearing this concept for the first time, pondered. How did he do it? Voldemort, I mean, Bruce was genuinely curious. How could a single name carry such a powerful message? If he could pull it off, Gotham's chaos would surely be contained. From that moment on, Bruce's interest in Voldemort grew wildly. You have to figure it out for yourself, Katoom didn't answer directly. Every world is different. You have to find your own path to fear that suits Gotham. Bruce had to figure out what kind of person he wanted to be. He wanted to be Gotham's Dark Knight, not the Dark Lord of the Wizarding World. Suddenly, as Hermione was still comforting Neville, a voice echoed through the train. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on board and we'll take you to school. Hogwarts arrived. The train slowed and finally stopped. Students shoved and jostled, swarming toward the doors and onto a small, dark platform. Bruce, already in his uniform, followed Hermione and the others down the train. A lamp flickered overhead, and a gruff voice rang out. First years. First years, come over here. Harry, come over here, how are you? It was a burly man, his face almost completely obscured by long, unkempt hair and a thick, tangled beard. He was greeting a young boy in the crowd, and the crowd stirred, recognizing him as the legendary Harry Potter. It was Bruce's first time meeting this youngest man in history books, and at first sight, he sensed a similar aura in him. As Katoom would say, it's the sympathy of orphans. Wait? Bruce suddenly realized when he'd gotten so used to Katoom's infernal jokes. He'd even been imagining what Katoom would say before he'd said anything. It was insane. Bruce shook his head, dismissing these ridiculous thoughts. Come on, follow me. Any first years out there? Watch your step. All right. First years, follow me. Hagrid waved his lantern and led the students toward Hogwarts. The path was pitch black, and silence reigned except for Neville's occasional sniff. Turn this corner, and you'll see Hogwarts for the first time. The narrow path suddenly opened up into a black lake. Across the lake, high on a hillside, rose a towering castle, its spires clustering. Its windows gleaming beneath the stars. No more than 4 people per boat, Hagrid shouted, pointing to a fleet of small boats moored near the shore. Bruce, Hermione, and Neville boarded the same small boat, which automatically set off, carrying the group of young wizards towards Hogwarts Castle. No one spoke, each gazing at the towering fortress, their thoughts etched in their own. Only Katoom, the owl, showed little interest. He leaped over the side of the boat, dipped his wings into the water, and let the boat's movement create a series of ripples. In this moment of utter silence, a massive dark shadow suddenly swam beneath the boats, shrouding the entire fleet in its shadow. The young wizard was the first to notice it, screaming, "What the hell is that?" The shrill cry instantly caught everyone's attention, and the fleet erupted in chaos. Hagrid laughed. "Oh, don't panic, don't panic. It's a giant squid. It's very docile and won't hurt you. If anyone falls into the water, it'll even rescue you." Hearing this, the young wizards finally calmed down, each eyeing the shadow below with curiosity. "Isn't that huge?" Bruce also watched the giant squid with great interest as it glided by. Then, suddenly, Katoom leaped onto his shoulder and wiped the water stains off its wings with Bruce's hair. "There's a rumor about the giant squid. Do you want to hear it? If I say I don't want to, you won't tell me." Bruce didn't answer, and Katoom launched into his own story. According to unofficial historical records, the giant squid is actually quite unusual. It's said that Godric Gryffindor, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, is still alive. He's the giant squid in the Great Lake. He's the largest animagus in the wizarding world, and possibly the oldest. Every night at 11 o'clock, the giant squid transforms back into its original Gryffindor form and wanders the school grounds until sunrise the next day. This unofficial history was truly outlandish. Bruce had read so many books about the wizarding world, and none of them mentioned this. "Who told you that?" Bruce asked. "J.K. Rowling," Katoom replied. "Who?" Bruce frowned. How could he have never heard of that name before? Was he from the wizarding world? But Katoom clearly didn't want to delve into the issue further. He simply watched thoughtfully as the dark figure in the lake slowly receded. If this rumor is true, Then this world has a more advanced form of transfiguration, Katoom said to Bruce. The giant squid isn't an animal, but a magical creature. While a regular animagus can only transform into an animal, this transfiguration allows it to transform into a magical creature, even a mythical one. He patted Bruce on the head. Don't worry, little Wayne. If such a transfiguration technique really exists, I'll teach you. Chapter 21 The Sorting Hat. The fleet docked at the dock, and the young wizards followed Hagrid to the castle. As they disembarked, Hagrid found Neville's toad on an empty boat. Neville, overjoyed, hugged his pet tightly, fearing it would disappear again. Katoom whispered, "How about a bet on when Neville will lose his toad next?" No. Without looking back, Bruce followed Hagrid to the castle's oak doors. Hagrid raised his casserole-sized fist and rapped 3 times on the door. It swung open, revealing a tall, dark-haired witch. It was Professor McGonagall, the deputy headmistress. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she said. "The start of term feast is about to begin, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, we need you all to decide which house you'll be attending." Bruce was furious. He remembered Katoom's promise to him that he would send him to the hidden house of Azkaban. But after reading books about the wizarding world, Bruce learned that Azkaban was actually a prison. Even more infuriating, when Bruce questioned Katoom, he nonchalantly replied, "Prison is just a higher form of house." That was a brilliant point, and Bruce decided to send Katoom to school someday. The 4 houses are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Bruce, however, was more concerned about which house he would be sorted into. In a few minutes, the sorting ceremony will take place in front of the entire school. I suggest you get yourself together and be alert while you wait. Bruce overheard 2 boys discussing something, Harry and his red-haired friend. "How can they sort us into any house?" Harry said. "I think it'll take some kind of test." This sparked a flurry of activity, and at the mere mention of the word test, all the young wizards became uneasy. Hermione was the most agitated, mumbling to herself and rapidly reciting the spells she had learned. "Is there really a test?" Bruce asked Katoom. But Katoom didn't answer. On the contrary, he acted like he was busy, reciting a spell over and over. "What are you reciting?" Bruce panicked. "Occlumency." "Don't worry about it. I have to keep the secret of our time travel from getting out." What did he mean? Could someone read his mind later? Bruce knew Katoom knew many spells now, and many magics that he couldn't perform were now easy under his control. Then, as Katoom chanted, a strange feeling emerged in Bruce's mind. It was like an invisible barrier, blocking Bruce's thoughts from leaking out. Katoom whistled, "It's easy. Don't worry." That was it? Bruce didn't understand why. It was actually much more complicated. If Katoom and Bruce weren't connected in spirit, the occlumency spell wouldn't work on anyone else. But Katoom wouldn't explain this. "Now, form single file," Professor McGonagall said to the first years. "Follow me." The sorting ceremony began. The young wizards were led into the magnificent Great Hall at Hogwarts. Amidst gasps of amazement, a tattered, pointed hat was placed before them. The wrinkles on the hat resembled human features, very ugly ones, and then a song began. As the song continued, the young wizards finally felt relieved. It turned out that no test was needed, simply putting on the hat would determine their house. Only Hermione showed a hint of regret. Professor McGonagall stepped forward, a scroll of parchment in her hand. "Whoever I call will put on the hat and sit on the bench to be sorted." Hannah Abbott, a little girl, stumbled out of the line and put on the hat. A pause. "Hufflepuff," the hat shouted. The Hufflepuff table erupted in applause. "Hogwarts is truly fascinating," Katoom suddenly remarked. "We're all just children, yet we have to be labeled first." Bruce felt helpless. Everything tasted different when it came from an owl. "Am I wrong?" Katoom turned his head 180 degrees again, looking like he was about to get a beating. "The 4 houses all have the same classes, so why should they be sorted?" "Maybe it's just tradition," Bruce said casually. "It's a good tradition. If there's a problem with one house, we can just split it up." Katoom kept nagging, and Bruce couldn't stand it anymore. He grabbed his beak in his hand, silencing him. "It's useless," Katoom's voice echoed in Bruce's mind again. "We can communicate telepathically. Have you forgotten?" Katoom felt he had said nothing wrong. Bruce had gone too far. Even the sorting hat itself thought the sorting was wrong. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the sorting hat composed a new song in which it said it felt the sorting was wrong, but it was simply necessary to fulfill its duty. Finally, Bruce was helpless. He let go of his hand and changed the subject. Which house do you think I'll be sorted into? 90% Ravenclaw, but I suggest you talk to the sorting hat and not go. Bruce was surprised. I can even talk to the sorting hat. Who do you think you are? Don't you have a bit of respect? Katoom said shamelessly. I've already informed the sorting hat, and he will respect your wishes. This is a privilege only you can enjoy. Really? Bruce was skeptical. Why are you so sure I'll go to Ravenclaw? Because sorting is based on future trends, and you don't qualify for any of the other houses. Gryffindor demands courage, but you've chosen to coexist with fear in the future, even using it as a source of strength. Slytherin demands recognition, but you're not proud of your name or bloodline. Bruce Wayne is just a disguise for your true self. Hufflepuff demands integrity. I don't even want to say more about that. For the sake of your own justice, you'll do almost anything except kill. Katoom's analysis involved a lot of future things. Bruce didn't know whether it was true or not, but it sounded reasonable to him. Then according to what you said, I have nowhere to go except Ravenclaw. No, 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 I hope you go to Hufflepuff. People who are assigned to other colleges have similar core characteristics. What you need now is to meet different people. Hufflepuff has all kinds of people, which will be good for your future growth. It's not about which college you are suitable for, but which college is suitable for you, right? The words sounded high-sounding, but Bruce remembered that he read in a book that the Hufflepuff lounge was close to the kitchen. He always felt that this was the real reason why Katoom wanted to go to Hufflepuff. Go to Hufflepuff anyway, I won't hurt you. Katoom sighed and spoke earnestly. Katoom was thinking about something completely different at this moment. Gryffindor's giant squid, Ravenclaw's diadem, Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, the inheritance of the other three colleges, have now been revealed. Only the Hufflepuff inheritance, the clue of the Golden Cup, is in Bellatrix's vault, and Katoom can't get it for the time being. There is no other way. Katoom's only choice now is to see if he can find other clues about the Hufflepuff inheritance in Hogwarts. So Bruce has to go to Hufflepuff. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 to Batman. Hermione Granger, the sorting list, arranged alphabetically by surname, had reached G. She practically ran to the stool and hastily put the hat on her head. Gryffindor. Hermione looked surprised. She had expected to be sorted into Ravenclaw. Then it was Neville Longbottom's turn. The sorting hat hesitated for a long time before finally placing him in Gryffindor. Harry Potter. The hall fell silent at the mention of the name, followed by a buzz of whispers. Potter, was she calling Potter? Is that Harry Potter, the legendary boy who had actually attended Hogwarts this year? Harry's sorting took a long time, but he was still sorted into Gryffindor. Why so many Gryffindors? Bruce asked curiously. Katoom said, it's just someone you know who happened to be sorted into Gryffindor. Don't worry, you're worth 3 of them. This was true. The entire trio of characters, taken together, made up a complete Bruce. Harry was an orphan, and so was Bruce. Hermione was a master of the art of scissors, and so was Bruce. As for Ron of the Weasley family, or Wayne for short, there was no problem either. Bruce Wayne. Finally, it was Bruce's turn to be sorted. Remember what I said, Hufflepuff? Katoom emphasized, watching Bruce take his place on the stool. A soft voice whispered in Bruce's ear, you strange little wizard, I see so many qualities of a house in you. You have the courage to fight for justice, the loyalty to sacrifice for your companions, a photographic memory, and the desire to prove yourself. Where should I put you? This. Bruce realized that the sorting hat's conclusion for him was completely opposite to Katoom's. Katoom said he didn't fit into any house, but the sorting hat said he fit into all of them. I'm going to Hufflepuff, Bruce whispered. The sorting hat immediately responded with a question, Hufflepuff? Oh, that's certainly good, but I think you could have a bigger role to play. What do you think? Can they really communicate? Bruce discovered that although Katoom's words were unreliable, he had no problem doing things. He actually said hello to the sorting hat. I've decided to go to Hufflepuff. Okay, I respect your wishes. Then, the sorting hat loudly announced the result of the sorting, Hufflepuff. The Hufflepuff table suddenly burst into applause, cheering for the new students. On the other side, Hermione heard the news and for some reason, she suddenly felt relieved. Finally, she didn't have to live in Bruce's shadow. As Bruce walked off the stage, he saw Katoom wink at him. "So, my face was useful, right?" Bruce nodded calmly. "Good boy, you are really something." After all the students were sorted, Professor McGonagall rolled up the parchment, picked up the sorting hat and left. Headmaster Albus Dumbledore stood up. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome everyone to Hogwarts to start the new school year. Before the banquet begins, I would like to say a few words. That is, idiot. Crybaby. Scum. Twist. Thank you, everyone." Thunderous applause rang out in the hall, and everyone sincerely approved of the principal's brief speech. Amid the applause, countless exquisite foods appeared on the originally empty long table, which made people's mouths water just by looking at them. Bruce was very self-disciplined. After eating the planned amount, he put down his cutlery. Katoom was still showing off. "Is it not to your taste?" Suddenly, an older boy next to Bruce turned around and asked with concern. He had handsome features and very white skin, like a vampire. "My name is Cedric Diggory, 3rd grade," Cedric introduced himself. Hearing the name, Katoom suddenly stopped showing off his food and quickly patted Bruce. "Hurry up and shake hands with him, hurry up, I want to see 2 Batmen in the same frame." "What 2 Batmen?" Bruce had no idea what Katoom was talking about. Katoom explained, "This matter is very complicated and you can't grasp it. I can only tell you that there is a Batman in this universe who looks exactly like Cedric." Bruce still introduced himself to Cedric, but did not shake hands to satisfy Katoom's bad taste. "Is this your owl?" Cedric looked at Katoom with interest. "You seem to have a good relationship and are inseparable." "Not a good relationship, thank you." Although Bruce complained in his heart, he still made an explanation. This was the excuse he and Katoom had discussed before. After all, they would often appear together in the future. "I have a little anxiety disorder," Bruce said. "I have to be with my pet to feel relaxed." When he said this reason, Bruce cursed Katoom countless times in his heart. "Can't you think of a better reason?" "I see." Cedric nodded, and there was a hint of understanding and regret in his eyes when he looked at Bruce. He said, "It doesn't matter. Hufflepuff is a very inclusive family. There are all kinds of weird people. Bringing a pet is nothing." Bruce nodded. Of course he knew this. Otherwise, he would not have come. At the main guest table, the teachers were also having a meal. Potions Professor Snape and Defense Against the Dark Arts Professor Quirrell sat together, and next to them were Professor McGonagall and Headmaster Dumbledore. At this time, Professor McGonagall was cutting a piece of steak, and suddenly thought of something, and turned her head to Dumbledore and said, "Mr. Principal, have you been following the news in the Daily Prophet recently?" Dumbledore wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Are you talking about the Unwelcome Alliance?" "Yes, they have been making more and more noise recently," Professor McGonagall said. "This time, they almost blew up Godric's Hollow to the ground." "I know about this," Snape said in his unique tone, neither slow nor long. "I heard that Remus Lupin joined this group. Birds of a feather flock together. The League of the Unwelcome, of course, welcomes werewolves." "Oh, werewolves." Quirrell was so excited when he heard the word that he almost fainted. "Severus, you can't jump to such a simple conclusion," Dumbledore spoke. "I believe Lupin, he must have joined for a reason." "Of course there is a reason." There was a hint of disdain in Snape's tone. "Although I didn't pay attention to Lupin, I knew that his life must be very poor, and it was normal for him to join a gang of thieves." Dumbledore said nothing more. It seemed a little too early to label the League of Unwelcomes as thieves. This group of people started to rise a few months ago. They came and went without a trace, and appeared in various magical ruins, as if they were looking for something. Dumbledore felt deeply worried. He always felt that the goal they were plotting was more terrifying than he had imagined. Perhaps he should contact Lupin. Chapter 23 The Future of the Unwelcome. Wales, a ruined valley. A lantern rested on a half-broken wall, its light stretching out several figures. They wielded shovels, seemingly digging for something. Their heavy breathing suggested someone had reached their limit. "I can't do it anymore." Finally, one dropped their shovel and slumped to the ground, unwilling to rise. "I'm a wizard, not a peasant. You can't force me to do this kind of physical labor." The speaker was none other than the dark wizard Jason had forced into his group. Jason only now learned his name, Gibbern, a rather unremarkable one. Lupin, on the other side, sneered, "Is this all the Death Eaters can do?" He said so, but he also quietly stopped what he was doing. Seeing the internal strife breaking out again, Jason, The leader of the group dropped his shovel and said, "Let's take a break." The three of them sat down. Although there were two wizards in this small group, one had been deprived of his powers by a curse, and the other had his wand forcibly confiscated, leaving them unable to use magic and limited to manual labor. After resting, Lupin immediately distanced himself from the other two, completely unwilling to be near Gibern. This dark wizard had once been one of Voldemort's minions, and Lupin had fought against him before, for whom he harbored a deep dislike. Unbeknownst to Lupin at this moment, Gibern would have a deeper connection with him. In the future, in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Gibern joins other Death Eaters in infiltrating Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry through the vanishing cabinet in the Room of Requirement. He and a Death Eater named Thorfinn Rowell battled Lupin and Tonks. During the battle, Thorfinn fired a killing curse at Lupin, but it missed and instead struck Gibern, resulting in his death. In other words, according to the original timeline, Gibern was Lupin's scapegoat. "Do we really have to do this?" When Lupin sat down, he started saying these words again. Jason's ears were calloused. "Remus," he stood up and sat next to Lupin. "Are you still feeling guilty about that, Dumbledore? No matter what, I can't betray Dumbledore's trust. I want to be a good person." He looked up at Jason. "Although you didn't ask me to hurt others, your behavior is really too extreme, and what you are looking for now is too blasphemous. We are just doing good things." Jason used the communication skills he learned from Batman to slowly break down Lupin's psychological defenses. "Look at the wizarding world now. Is this what you want to see? Are they treating you well?" Lupin didn't answer. He simply murmured, "Dumbledore was very kind to me, so what if he was kind? Look at you now." Jason's voice suddenly rose. "If he truly cared about you, why are you still penniless? You love this world, but who loves you, Remus? I've never met Dumbledore. I don't know what brainwashed you with him, but I can tell you very clearly that no one in this world would selflessly serve others. Even your adoptive father, who raised you, would betray and abandon you without hesitation." Jason's pores flared, his breathing heavy, his emotions clearly uncontrollable. He paused for a long time before gradually regaining his composure. "Remus, we're all the same kind of people. We're not welcome in this world, but we're trying to survive. What you're doing isn't harming the world. On the contrary, it's helping it get back on track. Have you forgotten what I told you before? If our plan succeeds, we can create a world of equality." Jason opened his palm, and a small tube of green liquid appeared in his hand. "Do you know how precious this thing is? I received it from a being as powerful as a god." Lupin stared at the tube of liquid, his unwavering faith beginning to waver. The future Jason had described for him was indeed possible. If only the liquid in his hand were as magical as he'd promised. "Keep going, Remus." Jason patted Lupin's shoulder. "We're halfway there. We can't give up halfway. Once we find it, we'll go to Hogwarts. The Great Hall of Hogwarts. What are they looking for?" Professor McGonagall muttered to herself. "The unwelcome league's haunts are long-abandoned magical ruins, but they're spread across a vast area, practically covering the entire United Kingdom. England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, the British Isles, these three have practically explored every corner. I have news, if you'd like to hear it." Suddenly, Snape spoke in his calm tone. "Severus, please speak." Professor McGonagall smiled. "Not long ago, a parchment notebook appeared in Nocturne Alley. It is probably nearly 1,000 years old. This notebook itself is worthless, just a travelogue, but there is a very unique record on it." Snape paused here deliberately, until even Dumbledore put his ear over here. He continued to speak slowly. "The owner of the notebook once met a person during his travels and had a conversation with him. The content of this conversation was recorded on the parchment scroll. Speaking of which, that person also has a lot of connection with Hogwarts. Who is it?" Professor McGonagall asked quickly. "Salazar Slytherin." Snape finally didn't keep the secret, and it was Salazar after he left Hogwarts. All the professors who were listening attentively widened their eyes. Even Professor Quirrell was no longer stunned. On the contrary, his interest was stronger than ever. Salazar Slytherin, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, chose to leave Hogwarts after establishing Hogwarts because of disagreements with the other 3 founders. Since then, there has been no news. Unexpectedly, a note appeared, recording the story of Slytherin afterwards. "What was said in that conversation?" asked Professor McGonagall. "I don't know," Snape faltered at the critical moment. The note had just appeared when it was snatched away, and the person who was robbed was also threatened. Judging from the robbery method, it should be the group of people from the Unwelcome League. The professors suddenly felt bored. Only Professor McGonagall was thoughtful. So, what the Unwelcome League is looking for is related to Hogwarts? Strange, we have no intersection with them. Why are they interested in Hogwarts? Snape said. Maybe they are interested in a certain student. After saying that, he turned his gaze to the Gryffindor table again, looking for a pair of familiar eyes. However, in a place they didn't notice, at the Hufflepuff table, Bruce suddenly sneezed. I don't know who is thinking of him. Chapter 24, Little Gotham Shock. The banquet quickly concluded. After Dumbledore outlined a few prohibitions and the entire school sang the school song, the prefects led the freshmen to the common room. The Hufflepuff common room was very secure. It was the only house common room equipped with a repellent device to deter trespassers. The entrance was in the corridor to the right, near the kitchens, on a pile of large barrels placed on a dark stone trough. Everyone, remember the rhythm, Hufflepuff Prefect Gabriel Truman explained. Tap the bottom of the second barrel in the middle of the second row to the rhythm of Helga Hufflepuff. The lid will swing open, and the entrance to the common room will appear. Pretty convenient, isn't it? No commands or questions were required. Bruce praised this highly, saying, what an interesting way to open a door. He couldn't help but wonder if, when he returned to Gotham and designed his own secret base, he'd implement a similar system. For example, the entrance to the secret tunnel could be hidden behind a display case in Wayne Manor, and the secret door could only be opened by playing a scale on a piano. Everyone, be sure not to beat the wrong rhythm, Truman emphasized repeatedly. If you don't hit the correct melody, hit the wrong barrel, or hit it the wrong number of times, the lid of the other barrel will burst, and you'll be covered in vinegar, so it's best to practice this in private, or you'll be smelling of vinegar all day. Truman demonstrated the technique slowly and opened the door to the passage. The young wizards followed him into the common room. The Hufflepuff common room wasn't fancy, but it looked cozy, filled with plush armchairs and a variety of fragrant herbs. Hanging on the wall was a portrait of a slightly plump, red-haired lady, holding a golden cup and a friendly smile. This was the founder of Hufflepuff House, the sunny and cheerful Archwitch Helga. Why isn't this portrait moving? One of the young wizards asked. Huh, it really is, Truman frowned. Last year, this painting was still moving. It seems it's finally time. The reason why portraits can move is determined by the magical power of the wizard in the painting. The more powerful the wizard, the stronger the intelligence of the portrait will be, and it can even be indistinguishable from the real person. The same is true for Hufflepuff portraits. At least 1,000 years ago, the people in the portraits could still teach magic to young wizards. But 1,000 years have passed after all. Since a long time ago, Hufflepuff portraits can only repeat simple movements, let alone communicate with people. Now it is completely motionless. Everyone only feels regretful, but not surprised. Truman said, I will report this matter to the dean later. Now, everyone can go back to their dormitories in turn. He led the girls into a door first, and then took the boys to the dormitory. Their luggage was already there. It was late at night. Bruce was lying on the bed with the goose yellow velvet curtains, and Katoom jumped onto his pillow. Bruce, do you miss Gotham? Don't ask such boring questions. Bruce sat up slightly. He and Katoom communicated telepathically, so there was no need to worry about disturbing his roommate who was already fast asleep. Today I finally met Dumbledore in person. Bruce recalled the figure with a white beard. He is indeed as unfathomable as described in the books. What do you think? Katoom asked. I think he is terrible. Bruce pondered for a moment and expressed his concerns. Others say that Dumbledore is one of the most powerful wizards of our time, and he is highly respected and has countless followers. A wizard like that, no one can restrain him. What if he decides to do something evil? Who can stop him? Katoom shrugged. You're such a jerk. You're really unwilling to trust anyone. It's not that I don't trust anyone, but my concerns are not unfounded, Bruce retorted. If there were a being like that in Gotham, I wouldn't be able to sleep well, Katoom asked. Then what? Are you going to have a Batman vs. Dumbledore fight? That's not necessary, Bruce said, lowering his head. But I have to find Dumbledore's weakness so I can stop him if he does evil in the future. Here it comes. Bruce's innate paranoia makes him intolerant of anyone who is invincible. Katoom suspected that if Bruce ever traveled to the Warhammer world, given his paranoia, he would probably find a way to dethrone the Emperor from the Golden Throne and take his own place. Let me be frank with you, you don't have to worry about Dumbledore. With his vantage point, Katoom decided to bring Bruce back on track. They weren't here to save the Harry Potter world, they were simply traveling to study and become stronger. Don't worry about Dumbledore, he'll die on his own, Katoom said. The one you should be most worried about right now is your good fellow countryman, Jason Todd. What happened to him? Bruce was stunned by the sudden name. It's been a while since he'd heard from him. He'd been calling for his death, but he'd never showed up since. Bruce had thought he'd given up. This kid was raised by your future self, and he has the same problem as you. Never fight a battle you're not prepared for, Katoom explained. Today I heard the professors talking about him. It seemed like they were looking for something, perhaps to use against the wizarding world. Unlike you, he doesn't have a no-killing principle. I'm kind of looking forward to it, Bruce frowned. Looking forward to what? Looking forward to him making a big splash, bringing a little shock to this long cozy wizarding world, Gotham. Hufflepuffs usually attend classes with Ravenclaws. On the first day of school, Bruce's schedule was 2 consecutive potions classes in the morning, a herbology class, and a history of magic class in the afternoon. Potions classes were held in a dungeon classroom. It was colder here than the main building of the castle. Glass jars were lined along the walls, and the animal specimens soaked in them were shuddering. The young wizards of Hufflepuff were given a cold shoulder as soon as they arrived at the school. Professor Snape had greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and cold and empty eyes. You are here to learn the precise science and strict craftsmanship of potion preparation. He started the class by calling the roll, and then entered the teaching stage without any greetings. Since there is no silly waving of wands here, many of you will not believe that this is magic. His cold eyes swept across the faces of each student, and the little wizards could not help but lower their heads, not daring to meet his gaze. Then, Snape saw Bruce. Unexpectedly, Bruce still maintained his posture of sitting upright, with his head held high, looking at Snape without fear. Snape frowned slightly, and continued to speak. I don't expect you to truly appreciate the beauty of that simmering crucible with white smoke and bursts of fragrance. You will not truly understand the liquid flowing into people's veins, the kind of magical power that makes people's hearts and minds excited and their wills confused. I can teach you how to improve your reputation, brew glory, and even prevent death, but there must be one thing, that is, you are not the kind of idiots I often encounter. After that, his eyes were gloomy, staring at Bruce, this ungrateful student. Chapter 25 Snape vs. Half-Blood Prince. Bruce met Snape's gaze head-on, unflinching. Why not? Because he wasn't afraid. Katoom had said more than once that Bruce used fear as his source of strength. He wasn't kidding. There was a great terror between life and death. After witnessing his parents' deaths before his eyes, Bruce felt that nothing in the world could be more terrifying. And what about a mere professor? The proud bat boy would never bow his head. And at that moment, Katoom stood proudly on Bruce's desk, wings akimbo, staring at Snape. Even the proud Demon King wouldn't bow his head. And if Snape wanted to target someone, he would only target Bruce first. Who could dislike a harmless little owl? Wayne. As expected, Snape called Bruce's name. Like thunderclaps from a clear sky, all the young wizards' eyes turned to Bruce. How do I get a juice from the sleepy beans? This was knowledge already in their first-year potions textbooks. As first-year wizards, they learned how to handle various potion ingredients. The correct answer is to slice the sleepy beans, but this knowledge point is a bit beyond the scope of today's young wizards. It's covered in the second half of the textbook. Snape held his head high, as if waiting for Bruce to embarrass himself. But Bruce hesitated, his thoughts drifting back to 3 hours ago. Bruce, get up. Early in the morning, Katoom's chattering voice echoed beside him. Then there was the rustling of pages flipping in the air, and something heavy hit Bruce in the face. Bruce barely swallowed the curse that was on the tip of his tongue, opened his eyes, and checked the time. It was only 6 o'clock. Bruce's usual self-discipline made his body clock more fixed than most people's. It wasn't time to get up at 6 yet, and he was extremely sleepy. Hazily, he saw the book Katoom had thrown him, if that thing could still be called a book. The book was completely tattered, its pages barely holding together. If you flipped it even slightly, it would fall apart, no doubt due to Katoom's careless tossing. Furthermore, the previous owner had scribbled all over it, leaving the margins dark and smudged. Bruce felt disgusted even handling it. Is this a potions textbook? Bruce reluctantly flipped through a few pages before recognizing it. Yes, and it's a first-year edition, Katoom said, taking credit for it. Sixth-year editions are easy to find, but first-year editions are harder. But your godfather was blessed with incredible luck, and he actually helped me find them all, from 1st to 7th. What's so special about a first-year potions textbook, especially one so tattered? Bruce said, then flipped through a few pages. He became absorbed in the reading. It was a long moment before he looked up, his expression completely different from his previous calm. The previous owner of this book was a genius. His face was filled with delight. So many of the ideas in it coincide with mine, and some I haven't even thought of. Don't compare yourself to him. He's been exposed to magic since he was a child, and you've only been around for a short time. Katoom thought Bruce was being offended. No, that's not what I meant, Bruce quickly explained. When I look at this book, it's like I'm talking to a genius my own age. I can draw inferences from one instance to another. It's a rare opportunity. Then he thought of Katoom's earlier attempt at credit. A book filled with notes like this must be something very precious, right? How did you find it? That's nothing. Katoom finally got the question he'd been waiting for. He smiled calmly. Now all the owls at Hogwarts are my minions. I have eyes and ears all over the castle. Even a small textbook is a piece of cake. Bruce didn't know how much truth or boasting he had in his words, but he had to admit that Katoom had been a great help. This book was worth at least 3 or 4 stories. Bruce was filled with curiosity about the book's owner. He flipped through the book again and again until he finally came across a line of small, densely packed text at the bottom of the back cover. This book belongs to the Half-Blood Prince. Meanwhile, in potions class, facing Snape's seemingly challenging question, Bruce thought of a point he and the Half-Blood Prince both agreed on. This was a unique approach, different from the textbook. How do I get a juice from the sleepy beans? Snape's question would have been perfectly accurate if he'd answered it according to the textbook. But Bruce refused to just recite from the book. He preferred to pursue the truth. Which answer should he give? Seeing Bruce remain silent, Snape's sneer deepened. The sound of flipping pages echoed throughout the classroom, fearing that if Bruce couldn't answer, Snape would call on him. Sitting next to Bruce was fellow Hufflepuff student Justin Finch-Fleckley. He finally found the answer in the book and, covering his mouth, tried to secretly remind Bruce, but was startled back by a glance from Snape. Snape raised his head and said sarcastically, "It seems some of our classmates not only lack respect for teachers, but also for knowledge. Use the side of the silver dagger to squeeze it, and the juice will come out more easily." Bruce finally spoke. He uttered this answer before the gaze of all the students. Then, the entire classroom gasped. Bruce was wrong. This wasn't what the textbook said. Justin covered his eyes in agony, as he could already see Bruce being severely punished by Snape. Hufflepuff was doomed to lose points. Everyone observed a moment of silence for Bruce. 1, 2. Time passed, but the expected sneer from Snape never arrived. Then everyone looked up to see the menacing Professor Snape, stunned by his answer. "Professor," Bruce suddenly spoke. "Excuse me, is there anything wrong with my answer?" Justin was speechless. "You're still trying to provoke me, Wayne," Snape finally spoke, his brow furrowed. "Where did you get that method?" "I figured it out." Bruce wasn't one to share his secrets casually. "Professor, is my answer correct?" "Very correct." "Oh no, not correct." "Oh no, very correct." Snape seemed lost in a deep struggle, repeating something like right. "Oh no, no." Bruce hadn't answered according to the textbook, and it was understandable that Snape would criticize him, even deduct points. However, he couldn't bring himself to deduct the points. After a long moment, Snape finally raised his head and made a decision. The truth was more important than a tiny Wayne. The student who came up with the idea of squeezing juice out of a knife handle is undoubtedly a genius, perhaps even one that only appears once in a century. Snape stared at Bruce and spoke through gritted teeth. 5 points to Hufflepuff for this method. The entire classroom fell silent, and some students pinched themselves, thinking they were still dreaming. Did the seniors say that Snape never gave extra points to students outside of Slytherin? And that extra point was 5. Did the sun rise from the west? At this moment, only Bruce understood. He directly questioned the owl on the table, who was still standing with his chest and hands on his hips, through telepathy. "Katoom, tell me honestly, is the Half-Blood Prince Snape?" End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.